Okay, welcome to Valley Strange. This is episode number 19, I think. 19.
Fuck if I know.
Episode number 19, I think. And this is part 4 of our reading through The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. Last episode, we covered chapters 11 through 20. And the last chapter we ended on was a new aristocracy. Okay, and again, before we continue, we have to make sure that everyone is acknowledged. So we are in Nowhere Man Studios.
Oh yeah, this is Roland, king of Nowhere Land Man Studios.
That's owner, manager, and janitor.
Right.
Of Nowhere Man Studios.
Especially that last one.
Recently cleaned up. Good job, Roland.
Again. Hooray.
And then we also have representing the Pacific Northwest division of MoQuest Studios.
Yes, stunt coordination, animal handling. That's my specialty for the organization. This is Daniel. Hey,
Skunk Wrangler Extraordinaire.
Hey, man, someone's got to do it. That shit pays better than you'd think.
Oh, oh yeah, I bet.
And we're going to jump right into it with chapter 21, Funny Money.
Funny money. Dude, now I'm thinking about fucking, what was it? Parks and Rec with the fucking spoiled ass brats that were Henry Winkler's kids. They're like, Daddy, give me money.
What the hell were the name of those actors? Yeah, they're
one of them's now
hilarious.
voicing the fucking
Sonic the Hedgehog.
DuckTales dudes.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
that's also what's his name? Ben some shit? No. Fuck.
Is that the guy that does like all those weird dances in there and shit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
He does he has the what the hell is it?
But they also sing like, "Oh, you're the worst."
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just keep thinking about in the coming chapters that thing kept recurring to me. Money, give me money.
It's
money,
it's Ben Schwartz is the brother, and the sister's name was she's actually a pretty good actress and pretty goddamn funny.
But I guess more probably be like Hesse,
Jenny Slate.
give me
Yes.
mercenaries,
Jenny
Murkies, Hesse.
Yep, that's her. I mean, you.
Now, regarding the chapter of Funny Money, it's referring to paper money.
Right, the
Inflatable
advent
paper money.
or
Inflatable paper money,
the evolution of paper money, as we understand it.
Yeah, so we start off and we get introduced to the idea of promissory notes.
Right.
Which is it was just easier to carry like a piece of paper saying I have 10 chickens at my fucking farm
than to actually carry 10 chickens.
Carrying your fucking chickens to the market to try to barter there with them.
So it's an adaptation of the barter system.
It's more convenient, saves time, saves energy.
And just like Funny Money, though, it also introduces the concepts of inflation and is it devaluation or
devaluation, yeah.
Devaluation.
Well, don't you have one with the other? You can't have one with the other, right? If there's inflation, there's going to be deflation.
I mean, yes, they are exclusive to each other. It's the whole the total package of large scale fuctitude, economical fuctitude, because that's pretty much what happens.
Now,
So these,
according to Bramley, he says that with inflation, it says this happens when the money supply becomes larger,
Right.
in proportion to the supply of valuable goods and services.
Because the paper money has to be backed by something tangible, something physical. In the case of the barter system, like it's goods and services. Right. What happens later on is that they base it in precious metals, obviously gold, silver, that sort of thing. But the ideas of inflation and devaluation apply the same. As they pass out more of these promissory notes, they start sort of what is it? The supply, or rather the. I guess
let's just go back to the chickens. Dude's got a chicken farm, goes to the market, starts wheeling and dealing, ends up fucking his own system over because he's promised more chickens than he has.
Right,
and this isn't a problem unless like all those people come to collect.
Right.
Yeah. At the same time.
So this is a standard banking practice that's even like today where it's, money's valued. I'm not sure what the rates are today, but old banking practice will get you in like the UK, London, all those places that start with central banking systems. They usually print like 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 the amount of notes to like the gold ingot or whatever it's supposed to represent.
Mm-hmm. Right. On the sort of agreement that not everyone is going to come in and try to cash it out.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like,
on the assumption that that's not going to happen.
If like a whole town came in to cash take out all their money from the bank would be fucked.
Yes,
basically.
But the thing is, like, it's a bank, so they probably wouldn't allow that. They'd think of some XYZ bullshit reason to be like, oh no, we can't give you all your money back. Because they're.
Well, just imagine the uproar people would get.
No, absolutely, there will be, but again, like, when the banks are the ones that are like controlling the value and like the supply, the money itself, like there's not much people can do. And this is the same thing that happens.
Well, that's why
this is where you get.
We pretty much survive mostly on like debit cards, and credit cards, and stuff like that.
And this is where you get
like fiat money or whatever it's called. I think that's the right.
Because Brownlee comes out and says that money itself is not valuable. The actual paper,
no, it's not.
Is not valuable.
Right.
And like we talked about, it's mostly
it represents value. It's not it doesn't actually like it isn't a value inherent of itself. No.
Yeah, and again, we are not economists, so I mean, like anything we're coming up with. I mean, this is talking about me personally.
I had to bring up fucking fiat money and then Google it right after to make sure I knew
it's
what I was
been a while since I looked that shit up.
Fortunately, I did in that case. You know, like
so
I study social science, not fucking economics, though. Like.
Right.
Maybe Stone Age economics,
Hey, there we go. Like, we'll give you the basics. It's
actually a pretty cool book by, was it Marshall Salins who wrote that? Anyway.
So, where did we off here?
Who the fuck was it?
So, like, so the people that are cutting, in this case, the promissory notes are also the ones that control the actual value of said notes. And what they do is when they basically fuck themselves over by cutting too many IOUs, without the actual supply to back them up, they say, okay, like, I'm going to send out this promissory note, it's worth 12 chickens, and I send out too many. I don't have enough, birds to cover that tab.
12 notes good for an egg or something now.
Exactly. Like, so like I'm going to go ahead. Exactly. I'm going to go.
It's redeemable for less and less of the goods that you're supposed to get for it.
Yeah. I'm going to say, you know what? Like, I've been sending out a lot of these. The value of my chickens has raised. And so the promissory note is worth less. So I'm going to give you 6 instead. And so it protects themselves. And also at the same time, like, it fucks over the consumer because there's nothing you can really do about that.
Right.
Except, burn the motherfucker down, I guess.
Yeah. And we'll jump to this in a chapter coming up. But like when the American Revolution kicked off and did its thing with the whole Continental Notes that the Continental Congress kicked out, they said, yeah, sure, we'll back it after the war with real money because it was truly a fiat currency. It was backed by nothing.
Right.
Yep.
It was a promise. It was a promise to pay.
When it came down to it, I think people were like basically claiming like pennies on the dollar for what they actually got kicked out from the government because the notes had become fucking useless.
I think it says in there in the later chapter when they tried to come back and honor those notes, it was like 1 cent per dollar.
Yeah,
so it was like they reduced it by like 99%. They devalued it by almost 100%. So it's trash, And then, but the thing with that is like that's how you have a recession. That's how you fucking create a Great Depression. That's how we have like, all the bullshit that we've actually had in our lifetimes. We've lived through 2 recessions now. I think at this point. There was the housing crisis, and then there's the bullshit now. That everything gets fucked.
Like during Ronald Reagan years, wasn't there something like that as well?
I'm not sure.
We haven't been through it.
No, we didn't. We didn't live through that.
Like a depression, have we?
But
we haven't been through like a depression, right?
Well, like the current
recessions, for sure, but I'm not sure like a full blown.
No, like
economic depression.
people have like tried to liken the COVID pandemic to a recession, and it has been pretty bad. But I don't. You know what? They have tried to say that it is as bad, if not worse, than the Great Depression. I don't know the exact numbers to that.
I don't know,
but I know that
statement. Me to fucking ration butter.
Yeah.
So.
Land
of course, that was part of World War II.
Yeah,
Land O'Lakes is still in production again.
We're not starting our fires with wads of dollar bills and shit kind of stuff.
Yeah, fucking. Goddamn.
I would have to say, like, I mean, like, maybe relative to what they would consider, like, the value of the economy to the Great Depression, but like literally, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like there's those classic images from like pre-World War I Germany, and I think pre-World War II, where people are just rolling up with wheelbarrows full of Deutschmarks just to buy like a loaf of bread or whatever, or whatever the hell they called their currency back then. I'm not sure they're still called Deutschmarks or not, but
who cares? But yeah,
it's fucking fascinating.
It really is. And it's no, like we don't have anything like that dire. I mean, people are suffering, sure, but again, not to that extent. So, back to the chapter of funny money. I guess this sentence here for inflatable paper money and kind of the implications for it would possibly work well for maybe trying to move on from this idea. I guess I'll just go through this whole fucking paragraph, but this method of creating money clearly destroyed the true purpose of money, to represent the existence of actual tradable commodities. Inflatable paper money allows a handful of people to absorb and manipulate a great deal of true wealth, which are the valuable goods and services people produce, simply through the act of printing paper and then slowly destroying the value of that paper with inflation. It causes money to become its own commodity, which can be manipulated on its own terms, usually to the detriment of the production and barter system. Money was meant to assist that system, not to dominate and control it.
Where would you say we are at right now as a society? We're probably like, we're pretty much like, that's where like most of the wealth is held by like a small group of people.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And this whole movement,
it hasn't changed since
interesting.
It hasn't changed since the banking system was established. Like it's held by like a few families and a few like.
Well, I mean, you still see these names popping up: the Rothschilds, the Schiffs.
Yeah.
These fuckers got fucking crazy loaded off of the renting Mercs games in Europe in the 17th, 18th centuries.
Yeah.
Mostly 18th, I think it was, but.
Let's see. So I just wanted to mention this following and how Bramley's, well, like specifically what this has to do, because he's not just giving us a history lesson, and it's the little bit of the paragraph
what
following
that money
right
does.
after.
You look at that last page there.
Yeah, the inflatable paper money system described above was the new science of money being installed by Brotherhood revolutionaries. And again, this is just a new or a modern system of control and the Machiavellianism that they mention again, because like what we're going to go into, as they create more wealth, or rather like different countries adopt their own banks, they play them against each other. And we'll get into that in a bit, but let's see. An early version of the
theme before we move into these next chapters.
Go ahead.
Even though we're going to get away from the banking stuff a little bit in the next chapter on Calvinism, but importantly, you have this trend of reoccurring of you have countries in the midst of these huge military conflicts that are just spiraling them into further and further into debt. And now this new paper inflatable system is promoted as idea to be able to finance these wars. And that's generally what people are hopping onto. You see it in Holland. You see it in France, the United States.
At one point, I think it's the Dutch, they make it state law that the only like military bodies that can be hired have to be foreign. Like they can't, like I forget if it was the British, they weren't allowed to have their own.
Oh, it was the British after the Hanoverian dynasty started taking over with King George I, because this was the first time you had like German monarchs sitting on the English throne, and English citizens weren't so happy with that.
No, they weren't.
So to try to keep sedition down and shit, they kept a very small standing army of Britons down, and then hired German mercenaries,
Right.
which further filled the coffers of the fucking German states like Hesse Castle and some of these other ones. Hesse Castle being the big bad bombad of the mark renting business.
Right. And so that like they do this for some time. They basically play other countries against themselves while funding them and charging interest, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
even if in the case of like the German monarchs in England, say they got overthrown, they'd still go back to their homelands.
Yep, and they're
to
fine.
A massive amount of profit because of all of the mercenaries that are being rented from their own principalities. It's fucking really.
It's really diabolical.
Neat system.
Yeah, these motherfuckers. I mean, it only backfires a few times, but for the most part, like it is excessively effective at bankrupting everyone else and like consolidating like the wealth of the entire fucking continent into like a handful of families. So just to sort of end this chapter, the first bank,
the Bank of Amsterdam,
yes, founded by the Dutch Republic, Dutch Republic, independent Dutch Republic, the Deutsches. After they had a truce with the Spanish
and the Dutch were fighting again, the 80 Years' War, and then they were able to flip this new inflatable paper system they spun out like 3/4 of the wealth it generated to finance the conflict.
Yep.
But I think it was to pay, but it's not clear, but I don't think they used it to directly finance that war effort. I think it was just to pay for the aftermath. Unlike you have like in the American and French situation where there's active wars where they get pulled into it because they're like, well, we can finance this war we're fighting right the fuck now.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it says here, the primary reason the inflatable paper money system was created enables nations to fight and prolong their wars.
You still see that today, you know, with
yes.
Us staying in like certain parts of the world and participating in the conflict and stuff. Someone's profiting off of that.
Right.
Very much.
It's moved a bit more into like the spheres of oil and gas kind of thing. Like you want to control the.
Well, then we really
petrol.
slip into a further deep slippery slope of just talk about the military industrial complex itself.
Right. Yeah. It serves no real
and
purpose.
How that has spun out into interesting things, you know, because a bullet that isn't fired is fucking useless. You know? You can't make profit off of peace when you're making arms, you know.
Yeah. They're putting money into these new toys. They want to use them, you know. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next chapter. Chapter 22, Marching Saints.
Oh, when the Saints.
Marching in. Roland? No? Fuck you, Roland. God damn it.
No, I was thinking of our brother Where Art Thou. I wanted to crack out some. That's right.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, so in the last episode, we did mention a reformation going on with Martin Luther.
And somehow that version still sounded crappier than Dylan. I don't get it.
We talked about Martin Luther and his pretty much is like a revolution from the Catholic Church.
Right,
the Protestant Reformation.
The Protestant Reformation, the creation
got
of
pissed at indulgences, thought, you know, changed the idea of, you know, only the great, like from good acts getting you into heaven, only, you know, accepting the Jebus and the grace of God can save you.
Somehow even stricter sect of Christianity than fucking Catholics. Like,
well, I mean, we're going to get even stricter when we get into
the no fun Lutherans.
Yeah, so one of the most
no fun
Calvinists. Yeah.
It says one of the most important leaders of the Reformation was John Calvin, and it mentions here that he was only 10 years old when Luther broke from the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And then it says, but as an adult, became one of Protestantism's
posters in his room and shit,
most zealous
like what
advocates.
He thought that Luther looked like, and
he had a poster in his room. Yeah.
When I grow up, I'm going to do something amazing like him.
I'm going to be boring as fuck, and everyone will love me. Yeah.
So
I'm going to kill every party.
Yay!
So I guess
Kill,
the
kill.
basic beliefs of Calvinism is that salvation is required an act of belief.
Welcome to our Church of the Eternal Buzzkill.
Yeah. So was it the Calvinists or the Protestants that introduced the ideas of predestination?
That was
That was the Calvinists.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that, it's if listeners aren't aware, it's when God made you,
That's it.
he predetermined whether you're going to go hang out with him in heaven with all the boring angels, not drinking, not dancing, not doing cool stuff, or go to hell with all the cool people and give Satan a lap dance.
Yeah, that's right. And get a sweet rejected Nike shoe deal.
Oh yeah, but
Lucky, unlucky.
Yeah, so basically you're screwed.
It's,
Yeah.
Idea
Yeah.
that
And there's nothing you can do
before
about
you were
it.
born or whatever, it's been decided whether
But you
you're
don't-
damned or saved.
but
and
you don't
can't do
know
shit
that.
about it to change that.
But you don't know that, and all you can do with your current life is it's just to have faith.
Well,
it's to have faith.
Calvin knew that he was one of the elected, though. I mean,
that's
naturally.
right. Yes, that's
why
right.
wouldn't
Excuse
the founder
me.
be one of the elected?
That's right. I forgot about that because it's such a weird fucking tenet to have. Yeah, there were two.
Yeah, and
classes.
Calvin
within,
did nothing, and Brantley writes how Calvin did nothing to try to like justify predestination. He was just like, "Hey, it's one
a
of
thing,
God's
yeah.
wacky mysteries."
Yeah, and you
should
know
be
what?
humbled
Like-
by it, just that God guy. He's just up to his little shit again.
He's so funny. Oh, but I'm cool. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah,
whatever.
and so it's not clear whether you can determine whether you're part of the elect unless you're John Calvin himself.
yeah. Aside from
But
that, it just seemed like a
The
political.
role of the elected is to try to diminish the sin of the damned.
Yeah.
Right.
On
So basically,
earth.
they're wasting their time.
Right.
Right? They're just wasting time, wasting everyone else's time. So basically, do what we tell you, even though you're fucked anyways. They're like, what's the
Because
point?
that's right.
Because that's what God wants, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
and
he
then,
says he says here
surrender.
specifically, he says
the
that
no fun.
yeah, he says here that specifically that the elected were supposed to suppress the sin of others as a service to God. So basically, their service is to suppress other people's sin, even if they're not part of the predestination people.
I think the whole idea was to
Predetermined.
make
Yeah,
to go,
okay.
well, I don't know. I'm probably one of the elected. Why would I not be? Because I'm an egotistical, maniacal motherfucker. And if everyone's under that idea, then sin would get repressed in the world because everyone's kind of playing cop. But
Well,
I don't know.
One of the things that Bramley mentions here is that, like, why would God condemn nearly every soul before birth and then continue to punish them after death? And he says that the human race was still being punished from its original sin, and you'll
Right.
still hear that
Yep.
in
Yeah.
like modern evangelical Christianity. Like, you can see that in modern day that Lutheranism, Calvinism, like, and all, even like Puritan,
highly
kind of,
impactful.
Yeah,
and
it's still
resonate.
yeah.
It's weird, man.
It's still being talked about today. And basically, it says the original sin was early man's attempt to gain knowledge of ethics and spiritual immortality. So that was their punishment for attempting to. And we've talked about it in like the 12th Planet book.
Hey,
Yeah, that those human beings were trying to get knowledge and attain spiritual
yeah.
superiority and stuff like that, and the gods just suppressed that.
Right.
And basically, they said,
Because
how dare you try and like attain spiritual salvation?
Right. Know your role. You're a
Yeah,
slave.
know your role. Who wrestler says that?
That was The Rock,
The
man.
Rock.
Is it The Rock? Yeah.
Shut your mouth.
Candy ass.
Smell
Yeah.
what the
Have a glass of
Anunnaki are
shut up
cooking or
juice.
something.
Yeah, there you go. What the? Anunnaki is cooking. Sounds.
And,
It smells like bullshit.
He mentions that Calvinism is a philosophy of feudalism of the modern age.
Right. Yeah. Because they are separated into castes. Essentially, what are essentially castes? The
I mean, it's two
the
major
elites.
casts, the saved and
Yeah,
not
exactly.
saved, but,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah, it
the
simplifies it a
fucked
little bit more.
and everyone else.
you're born in that station, you die in that station.
And
yeah,
you-
it's feudalism.
And you wonder, like,
there.
which persons were the ones that were saved or the elect already? Like, I think we'll get to that in just a minute.
All the hotties.
all the hotties here. It says on religious grounds, Calvin. This is the one part I mentioned to Daniel at some point, that like how petty this religion is that
Dude.
says they forbade drunkenness, gambling, dancing, and singing flippant tunes. What is a flippant tune? Like, is it nothing that it's something that doesn't praise God? Is basically.
I mean, I know a couple of Slayer jingles that are pretty catchy, right?
But are they flippant tunes?
I don't know. There's one in like during World War II area where it's like, and when the Führer says we are the master race, we say Heil, Heil, Heil in the Führer's face.
And
So that'd be a flippant tune.
And of course, coming along with Calvin's new belief system is the heresy, the punishment of heresy.
Yeah.
And Calvin was down for
Burn
the death
the
penalty
witch.
for heresy. So
Right.
he was right there with the Dominican order of the Catholic Church that, were the
Inquisition.
The main, they were the Inquisitors. They were the main, I guess, like provocateurs of the fucking Inquisition.
Of like the fucking witch propaganda or whatever the fuck. Or
Wait, what propaganda?
witch, like,
I thought we were talking about druids.
And it does also mention that Calvinism kind of was the basis for the Puritan religion, which is like, it gets even stricter
right.
than even probably Calvinism.
Yeah, which we'll get there shortly. But Calvinism got popular.
As of course. it
Started
would.
in Switzerland with Calvin, then spread to the Netherlands and England. So in the Netherlands, I think we're going to go into the 80 Years' War again here in a sec. But that was the conflict that Spain and the Netherlands were in, and at the end of our previous chapter.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, Ray.
And then this is what gave us the Bank of Amsterdam, right?
It's the basis for Puritan beliefs in England. And so then we can, I guess, slide into another marching saint, going with Cromwell and the Puritans.
I just wanted to read this following sentence that just sort of goes to that, because it's just Bramley throwing in his humor again. Like their Calvinist brethren in Holland, some English Puritans decided to assert their gloomy beliefs and material self-interest through a violent revolution. And I mean, this is just the advent of, the angry Bible thumper or whatever coming in and just murdering everybody. What does it say here? Incorporating it into their actual beliefs. The Calvinists actually believe that peace was a sin. Conflict is.
The Puritans did.
Puritans. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Calvinist cosmology did shape it though. It says there, engaging in war was glorified.
Because if you're not battling, you're not battling Satan.
Right. Yes. The eternal struggle of good versus evil.
You're letting Satan
so
run
if there's peace is an affront to God, because if there's no conflict, then that means the battle against Satan has been ceased or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Nice,
which is a funny piece of logic, but
like that's,
we won. That's the other outcome,
Well, yeah, because I mean, if they're going based on like biblical wording or the words of Jesus Christ, I mean, that pretty much goes against anything he said when it comes to like he's the Prince of Peace and all that kind of stuff. But again, you also kind of see that in modern day as well. Whenever Christians or like even I say like Republicans who claim to be Christians are always like good with war because.
Well, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, just think about. Forgive the terrible pun, but some of the old hymns that you and I got forced to sing, right? I mean, I know you went to kind of like some more like snake charmery stuff, but you guys probably sang like Onward Christian Soldiers and shit like that. And
not necessarily. I think we were more modern Protestant Christian.
I also, I did mostly like attended like the traditional services or whatever.
No, I would say I was probably like just about a step and a half away from the snake charming thing. So
yeah, word. I just didn't know like how long your tenure at that one institution was. Now,
so
one of the things I do like is that like the Puritans labeled the Pope the Antichrist.
The Antichrist, yeah.
That's fun.
So these guys were so extreme. Apparently, it like shaped or rather, it had a changing effect on how like war was conducted. Because apparently, at like this point, it was like it was more of a theater of war. Like people didn't.
So you had
didn't fight as directly.
The caracole and shit. Pretty horse dance displays.
Exactly. Occasionally somebody would get hurt kind of thing, but a lot of it was just like, let's move this army over here. Oh, I will block you. Riposte, parry, riposte, with my troops.
Warfare, that's an important thing to bring up because it's another point where Bramley suggests that it's within humans' nature or human nature to avoid conflict.
Right. Yes.
So apparently the way the Renaissance dudes used to fight in Europe was dress in cool, colorful uniforms, dress up in lines.
Fancy motherfuckers.
March up and down the square a little bit, declare yourself the winner, and then go home.
Go home and bang some chicks. Oh, my charity, so hot. Bring that on hither. So yeah, like the Puritans changed that. They were like, oh no, you're gonna die, and that's
they changed warfare into an efficient,
right? Actual war, actual violence and brutality.
Yeah.
And
so, but getting to how the Puritans helped glorify war to get to this point where they're able to change the way that European battles actually went down. So that according to like Cromwell and his Puritan Goonies, they were God's second chosen people.
Yeah. Conveniently.
And Bramley has a note about this because like the Hebrews were probably God's first chosen people, but they fell out of favor. And so God's now looking at the Puritans as the ones to, be his people.
Yeah.
And so Cromwell was able to say that all of his actions were then part of prophecies from the Bible. So then you get back to this idea of, it's this eternal cosmic battle between, good and evil, God and Satan, where we circle back to the idea where peace became an affront to God, according to the Puritans.
Right. So they're pretty successful for a time. They were able to, divide and conquer, create a system of government.
Well, and importantly, Bramley doesn't get too much into the brotherhood ties or brotherhood, activities that lead to the creation of some of these systems. But once again, we have, the creation of, two opposing, belief systems within the same belief system.
Right.
Catholics versus Protestants. And then that got tied into the monarchical versus anti-monarchical movements, I believe, respectively.
Yes. Yes. The joke being that like some of them, again, same thing, like what you're referring to is like what was the conflict that existed within the Freemasons organization. They try to support both, and like they got a lot of shit for it. Against the ideas of having an independent government and then another system of government that's reliant upon the monarchy, that kind of thing. But that's actually later. So sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
But that's pretty much the end of that chapter, though. Unless you had something else.
Well, we have a little bit more shit because the Stuarts regained the throne.
Yes,
so
if you want to go into
kind of
specifics.
some like news flashy stuff. So
yeah.
So okay, but along with the warfare changing into a more effective, we're actually going to pile up bodies in these endeavors rather than just wave sabers at each other and go ha. Mm-hmm. You also had you drop the colorful uniforms and the big banners and shit, and you just go to straight tactics and shit.
Yeah, actual drilling, actual practice.
Cromwell, his government didn't last very long. Nope. It was about. Trying to see if I got a year here for Cromwell when he first takes power, but I don't. But by
it looks to be from 1660 to about 1685, like give or take 3 years. So, about
Well,
about
no,
a
the Stuarts were
generation.
getting the throne in 1660.
Right. And then without
25 years later, Charles II, who was put on the throne, dies.
Yeah. Yep.
He didn't have an heir, so they put his brother, James II.
Ruled
Then
another
2
3
years
years.
later, the Glorious Reformation started.
Yep. So about a generation or so, not very long.
Yeah, and then the Glorious Reformation was a continued, Catholic versus Protestant battle, or
and then that's
Battle
where we
Wills
have
or
the
whatever,
Puritan
souls or-
exodus to North America, and that's where we have the essential beginnings of the United States, or rather the colonies, the 13 colonies over here.
So we get reintroduced to our old friends at the House of Nassau-Orange, because they have a huge role that's going to be played in the Reformation. It's going to be discussed in this next chapter.
Right, they take the Dutch throne, and then that's when they start branching out, and eventually are in control of England, the British throne. Sorry, and so that's where we go back to what we were talking about before, where they start sort of playing with the banks and playing with the economy and warfare to.
Yeah, and we're about to get to the story of the English Bank, or the Central Bank of England, or the Bank of England's creation, and so forth in this next chapter, which is chapter 23. William and Mary have a war.
This sort of just expands on the things that we were talking about in the last chapter, where you have the the House of Orange Nassau. I forget if it's them that implements this.
Are you being serious with the? Is it orange or orange?
It's orange.
I think it's orange because it's red. It's
okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were just trolling.
no, I am, but I'm also, but I also can't help it because it is le propre pronounce.
See, now you're just being
Absolutely not, Ray. Those are also real words, and that is how you say those words.
All right, move on.
So, they're sort of the ones that are responsible for this sort of like system of consolidating political power and spreading out, I guess, and like reaching out to other ventures and to other countries by through marriage, through intermarriage of.
Isn't this point in time? I don't know if it's still the case, but where marriage is pretty much just
it's political in nature,
political or financially,
right? Financially based, financially
motivated.
Yes, and these guys were sort of the ones that sort of mass introduced that and perfected that.
So it's actually pronounced
marriage?
House Orange Nassau, Oranje, or something like that.
Oranje.
It's Dutch.
Okay.
But anyway, so the House of Orange Nassau,
because originally, and
Orange House, yeah.
Originally, Ray, like it's good that you asked, like why marriages and whether they were political or monetarily based. They're made for gain of some sort. Before that, it was a matter of breeding. It's just we're gonna stay.
Are you telling me that love wasn't a factor in any of this?
Ray, I don't even know if they knew how to spell that word or if it existed at the time. Like, they probably would have looked at you like giving you like ye olde side eye or
that
some
word
shit.
only existed in church, I think.
Yeah. This is a cool little sentence here. Royal marriages in those times were not only matters of breeding, they were also designed to secure political advantages and were often arranged with all of the sophistication and cunning of an espionage coup.
So I mean, not only was it political, but I mean, it was really just to like take over.
Yeah, it was a power
play,
move.
Yeah.
The German families were apparently notorious for marrying into foreign royal families as a stepping stone to seizing power in those other nations. Case in point, House of Oranje Nassau was a member of that treacherous German clique. Clique. I love how you use
these were
clique.
like, as far as like the takeover of a nations and things like that. That was that was already like predetermined, right? I mean, they knew that was going to happen, or like was it just
they
it
arranged
like,
them or whatever?
No, I know they arranged them, but I mean, like if there was like a takeover of a certain family of a certain family was marrying to kind of take over a certain nation.
Yeah,
they knew that was going to happen. Like that was the intention,
right?
So it wasn't like a surprise.
Oh, I don't know if know the receiving party, like if the English knew that,
if they had any objections or actual like,
because I mean that's what I'm saying. Because if you're calling it a coup, I mean,
well, it's like their version of a modern day like business hostile takeover, where like.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, are they even aware that was like their intention? Because like, they slowly move in on the family.
What ends up happening is that like the citizenry will revolt against those kinds of things. They see it coming, and they'll put up with it for a time, or they just outright reject those. If not the marriage itself, like they reject those families and like their representation over them. Kind of thing. Like how Daniel mentioned before, we have the Stewart family that gets. They're
like some of the first victims of this, German invasion of political marriages. Because you have James II's sister Mary, who married William III of House of Orange. Yeah, William III. Even though I got like
the threequel, William the threequel.
Yeah, William the threequel, and he was the Prince of Orange, and so then that established family ties between the Dutch and British thrones or royal families. Mm-hmm. So we have all these little political marriages going on, but we're about to get into the Glorious Reformation.
Glorious Revolution?
Revolution or Reformation, whatever the fuck they called it.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's
revolution.
So it's a group of it's revolution, dude. But
it's the revolution.
So he writes in here a group of Englishmen and Scots formed a Protestant political faction in England known as the Whigs. Actually headquartered the Whigs. Actually headquartered in Holland, which was under the monarchy of the House of Oranje.
What was what were the Whigs? What were their what was their motivation?
They were fiercely anti-Catholic, Protestant military group.
They were pro-England, I guess, if that makes any sense. Unless I'm mistaken. Wasn't
England like Catholic?
No.
Are they not Catholic at this time?
I don't believe so.
Shit, what was it? So James II was still the king. Oh.
Yes, that was during the Glorious Revolution, and then
it says the Whigs placed
yeah, they replaced him with
William the threequel of Orange.
Yeah. And then that
around this time he establishes the Order of Orange, which is a militant secret society that's like super, keep England Protestant, and that was like their mission.
This is supposed to be like an extension of. Apparently, like William the Threequel is reported to have been a Freemason, so he just sort of expanded upon that with his militant secret society of his own personal, boys club or whatever, and that was the Order of Oranje.
So James II. So the Stuarts were apparently Catholics.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you.
Just had to Google it up.
No. Awesome. Yeah. So like these guys were patterned after Freemasonry, like we said. They were anti-Catholic, and their purpose was to ensure that the dominant Christian religion of England was Protestantism. It says here that their strongest, they survived the centuries. They're strongest in Ireland, where they have over 100,000 members. It's apparently they have parades and whatnot. I don't know. Never been to Ireland. I'd love to go, but I'd also love to live. You know, Ireland is a crazy, crazy fucking place. No joke, I guess, to be had there, unfortunately. So
with the essentially the Whig success of removing James II, putting William III on the throne,
Willie III.
we also start seeing the first of the mysterious Scotsmen come in that try to promote the new central banking system with inflatable paper money.
William Patterson.
William Patterson, yeah.
Yes.
So initially, Parliament wasn't down with this new bank system until they saw the light, like Holland did.
But then they were like, "Oh shit."
You want to pay for your military efforts?
Right.
Well, here's a way to do it.
Our debt's getting pretty bad, guys. We're running out of credit. We need to take care of this shit. And Willie the Threequel is a bloodthirsty motherfucker. So they need to figure out how to fund this stuff. And so that's when they bring about the Bank of England. And he could continue, going on and chopping off heads and whatnot.
And the bank, the
Bank of England itself, real quick.
Yeah, the Bank of England is considered the mother of all central banks. Mm-hmm. Is it like the bank that everyone kind of like either borrowed from or stems from?
They created the standard of what all banking systems are based around.
And here's the central banking scheme for most modern nations. Step 1, you become the nation's primary bank. Step 2, you lend exclusively to said nation.
Right.
Step 3, you get the government in debt and be the nation's major creditor.
Yep. So in like modern day terms for like
is that the Federal Reserve?
Exactly. For the purpose of the United States, like it's the Fed, it's the Federal Reserve. Same thing. It's a bank that only loans to the government and controls.
As much as the United States tried to get away from, I guess the old ways,
the
of
old systems,
English.
Right? No, they fell right into it.
Yeah, they just pretty much
it's absolutely
set it up here again.
Absolutely the same shit.
Well, it's because the same people that came from that part, like
in chapter 28, when we talk about the American Phoenix, so American Revolutionary times. I can't remember. I think it was George Mason who said that Hamilton's bank system did more damage to the United States than the entire war did.
Than the American Revolution. Yeah.
And continues to at this point, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But we'll get to
it in just
us silly Americans here in a bit and all that stuff. But but that's the main scheme for the Bank of England, and it's repeated by other central banks around the world.
Of note, the Bank of England does, run these notes to the government. It's privately owned. This is
privately owned or privately operated.
This is ye olde corporations, right in front of us.
Yeah, the company store basically. So, interestingly though, and I'm surprised that this banking system fucking worked. Because of the risks that they took, because apparently standard banking practices of the day were to loan out, issue bills that were like 3 to 4 times worth less than what they actually were.
Right.
But what the Bank of England did was set it to a rate of
was it 16
and 2/3.
Yeah, they are fucking ridiculous. This later on contributes, or rather is the primary factor for them going bankrupt.
Is that interest number? Is that just like an arbitrary number they just decided to make up?
I'm sure they had some sort of. I mean, they had 16
some
and
reasoning.
2/3. That sounds arbitrary as fuck to me. There's probably some.
It's arbitrary, like by. It's probably arbitrary by like our reasoning. But like by theirs, they probably think of some bullshit like.
Well, yeah, they just use it as an excuse.
The price of shrimp in France divided by ice in Greenland equals, 10 point interest plus.
Wow,
go fuck yourselves.
That's real math there.
It is. Plus the weight of a turkey equals toothpicks.
The weight of turkey dookie. Yeah.
But so the beauty of this system was when it was established in England, the British government was asked only to pay the interest and not the principal of the loan.
Right. And interestingly enough,
which of course the bankers did not lose out on this deal.
No, actually, they made
the
back
first year of the loan. They fucking made.
They made back more than that they loaned out. Than what they loaned out by like.
I had a number here.
It was like about like 3 or 4 times back, dude, because they loaned out like what was it, like 30,000 or something like that, and they made back like over 100. Oh, here we go. Let's see.
Yeah, okay. So specifically, the financiers have put together a total base of 72,000 pounds of actual gold and silver. By issuing notes at a value of 16 2/3 times that base, the bank was able to make a loan to England of 1.2 million pounds in paper money.
Right.
Yearly interest was 8 1/3%, which equals to 100,000 pounds, which amounted to a profit of 28,000 pounds or 39% in 1 year.
Right. It's fucking ridiculous.
So once again, this is a privately owned institution. So you have like a few families and a few assholes that are just pulling together their material wealth and becoming the bank.
Right. So like we mentioned before,
and I put a haha in my notes on this because of the term that Brantley used.
Oh.
But these banks have quasi-governmental status.
Do you have the induction and the creation of the new aristocracy? That is to say, money, baby.
And it does mention that it says 22 years after the Bank of England was established, the identical bank was set up in France
Right.
in 1716. And the
Yes.
founder of the French version was John Law. It's a cool name, though.
It is.
Who became the finance
must have been a
minister
cop in
of
his previous
France.
Yeah.
No, you're a law, son.
I'm John Law. So
John Law.
yeah. They did the same things. They followed suit exactly as England did. Introducing
But the
a
French
ridiculous
system
amount of
crashed, though, initially.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it did.
Because they ran into the problem of overabundance of notes, and people got wise to it and lost faith in the system.
And that's basically, like you said, what's happening now. Like most of the money and like even the stock market is just based on the faith of the people.
Yeah, it's completely backed by nothing. Like we haven't been on a gold standard in fucking decades now, I believe.
Yeah. No.
And
The stock market only represents the smallest percentage of actual business.
There is
but they control 80% of the wealth.
I say
like
loosely the conspiracy going around that even like was it Gaddafi in I forgot what country it was, that he was trying to go back to the gold standard or something, and that's why they killed him. I don't know where they
Syria?
I don't know
One
where
of
it
those
was.
Middle Eastern countries.
But like certain, like they're saying like these dictators were trying to get back to the gold
Libya.
standard.
Gaddafi was Libya, I believe. But yeah, word.
Yeah.
I saw like this whole YouTube thing, which is kind of sucks because I don't know if you can find those kinds of things on YouTube anymore. But I think even him and a fucking Saddam Hussein were trying to get back to the gold standard or some shit like that, and that's why America went in there.
Yep. Makes sense.
But I don't know that for sure. That's just something I've heard.
Yeah. I believe it.
And so moving through our very lightly touched upon history of 18th century fucking Europe.
Yeah, so like Bramley really lays in heavy with this.
We get into we get introduced to the House of Windsor.
Yes. The current royal family.
So headline stuff, William III dies and takes the throne.
Right.
Backdoor dealing set it up that when Anne died, the throne went back to the went to the Range family in
Yep.
the throne went from the Orange family to the Hanovers. So the first Hanoverian king was George I, who apparently couldn't speak fucking English and spent most of his time securing German-based interests rather than English-based interests. But he's the guy who him and his cronies, reduced the regular army of native Britons down to like a small, tiny little, maybe National Guard sort of status. And this is when you start getting the mercenaries being hired out for military exploits.
Yep. And they continue to maintain their ties to the other German noble families through that business.
A lot of these mercenaries mostly came out of the province of Hesse-Kassel. And many of these Hessian-based or Hesse-based nobles are gearing up to become leaders of the new revitalized Freemasonry movements that start popping up in Europe around that time. Chapter 24, Knights New Dawn.
So basically, this chapter starts off talking about the students of Masonic history, that the Freemasonry was evolving something other than a trade guild and was becoming a fraternal society with secret mystical traditions. So these Masons were people from the other occupations, so they weren't just like trades folks.
Right. They were
called,
just bricklayers.
Accepted Masons.
Right.
And that was involving a lot more folks into their
politicians.
Yeah.
Politicians.
And so you have
they were
a transition from
business leaders.
Bramley, and I'm sure this isn't Bramley, this is like other historians of Masonic history, or students of Masonic history rather. But he brings up the ideas of operative versus speculative Freemasonry. Mm-hmm. So the operative Freemasonry was back when you did have fucking actual Masons in this like trade guild or whatever. When they started opening up to more speculative Freemasonry, then the
mysticism
shifted these tools of the trade that Masons had, like the hammer, the aprons, whatever.
Right.
Mystified them up a little bit and then turned them into symbols along the way that were important to this new form of speculative Freemasonry. And you have I'm
where it becomes more of
the
a
blue degrees proper. Bradley does have a discussion later in this chapter how, as discussed in chapter 15, how the assassins were the ones that are supposed to develop the blue degrees. But then when I went back to chapter 15 to look for evidence of this, I couldn't find any.
It's very scantily mentioned, and it's not in chapter 15.
Like,
it's
he
mentioned
barely
later.
mentions it, but it's not like
it's mentioned
like,
later because
a couple notes in here where I was like, you spend all this time talking about this, but you don't actually talk about this earlier.
When he's actually talking about the assassins, he doesn't mention the degrees. He mentions it later when he's talking about the origins of Freemasonry with respect to the Knights Templar and where they got their where they got the ideas of the degrees themselves, and he only mentions it.
And then
in
he
a
fucked
sentence or
himself
two.
over because in like the latter part of this chapter, which we'll come back to, I guess, but he talks about how some Freemasons may view any attempt to connect the blue degrees with the assassin sect as an effort to discredit Freemasonry, even though the connection was suggested by one of Masonry's most esteemed historians, who I assume was Adam Mackey or McKay, however he pronounced his name.
The Freemasons also like to say that they are the modern descendants of the Knights Templar, which is also an absolute fabrication. So yeah, you could take that as well with
it sells tickets, man. Like people want to
does sell tickets, I guess, but it's just,
my point was they say a lot of things.
About how potentially, I believe it's Mackey that he's fucking referring to in that, because in everything else that comes up with Masons, it's either him or
Albert Mackey and
was it Friedrich Katz, who wrote Freemasons and Jews in Europe from some time period to some time period. But he only just gives this offhand reference to, a noted Mason historian, but he doesn't explore that link. Like I never.
No, he doesn't even.
Chapter 15, like it just wasn't ever like clearly established that the ideas of these blue degrees were from the fucking assassins, even if it was just a suggestion from Mackey or Katz.
No,
and it just felt to me like one of those, like another missed opportunity, or maybe he was going to go back and add to the chapter 15 and didn't do it or whatever.
So what I'd sort of wished he would have done is like mention the specific titles themselves. He only mentions them like once or twice, and then it's just like, oh yeah, and then they keep adding more degrees, and now there's like 33 or whatever. But yeah, like he only mentions them here on 234 once.
Well, 33 in the Scottish Rite and 10 in the York Rite.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, yeah. Specifically, like for our listeners, the degrees they're titles, you know, like journeyman or layman. That's
so the blue degrees, the three.
It's entered apprentice,
fellow craft, and master mason.
Yeah, the blue degrees. Later on, they add more. They add secret degrees and like.
Well, they're grandmasters.
Well, they're referred to as the true degrees, I think.
True degrees.
After that, because it's like argued. I can't remember which branch of masonry, but it's like after you get through the blue degrees, then then that has demonstrated your
then you really start
the real secrets.
Exactly. Those are the introductory degrees.
Just that, pay to play,
we're done hazing you now. Time for the real shit.
Do you think like L. Ron Hubbard kind of took that kind of formula?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the Mormons to an extent as well.
These
but
are these.
I don't know if this is true or not.
They just save the crazy until you're in the doors.
So like Hubbard was a Freemason.
I will. If not, then he was he's influenced by them, because here's the thing that I do like about Bramley here in this book is that he draws parallels like within all these societies that show that like they all draw from like specific themes that can be, I guess, traced back to the Brotherhood, those sorts of things. So like the formula for secret societies or whatever is based around these rules, and like it's interesting. It also is just it's really hard to fucking believe, but I do think it's interesting.
After a quick Google right now, it looks like Hubbard may have not been a Mason.
Okay. But
not to say he didn't draw from those traditions.
Yeah. They mention in later chapters, how was it like Jefferson and I forget like one other guy that they weren't Masons, but like they were guests. Like they visited he visited some of the lodges, those kinds of things. And then later on, they tried to like bill him as a Mason or something like this. It's some gray areas, but maybe he was still influenced in some way. I don't know. I'm not going to look into that. I'm not a Hubbologist.
Well, I mean, Hubbard was evidently like super down with like the occult and shit from Crowley and stuff. So
yeah, then he does take.
But I'm not
inspiration.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Then he's gonna take inspiration from them, easily. So yeah, that's just mostly what I was going for. Like even if they're not like directly influenced or they might indirectly or like tangentially. A lot of the ideas that are used in these damn societies, apparently, as Bramley goes here, can be traced to a root form, and that is the Brotherhood or whatever. And so, I don't think it's too far out of the realm of bullshit speculation to make that connection or to maybe suggest it, I guess.
I mean, I guess we'll get to the foundation of the Mother Grand Lodge of England. It's vehemently pro-Hanoverian. Then the Reverend John T. DeSaglier, I'm not sure how to pronounce his fucking name. He was voted in as the Grand Master of the Mother Grand Lodge of England. And the Mother Grand Lodge, importantly, very pro Hanover rule in England.
And just to reiterate, the Hanoverians, those are the German royalty, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to.
Yeah.
Because this shit is only going to get more confusing as we go along. So I may ask every so often here, so we can just.
Yeah. So the new Grand Master of the Mother Grand Lodge of England wrote shit about how the Hanoverians are supposed to rule like England based on the laws of nature or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then Bramley brings us back to Machiavelli a little bit, where he poses kind of the question of if the Mother Grand Lodge was indeed a brotherhood plant to promote the controversy of Hanoverian rule, where's the opposition? And we have that opposition found in the supporters of the Stuarts.
Right.
So you've got
the loyalists,
the Jacobite faction.
Right. Yes. See, I get a little confused when I read about the Jacobites.
Well, I get fucked up because I took a class on the French Rev and Napoleonic history. So there's the Jacobins that we talked about for a long time. And so I see Jacobin, then I see Jacobite.
So that's what throws me. Yeah, that's exactly where I get lost.
Because I was like, wait a minute. No, the Jacobins were like pretty much anti-monarchy. Like, what's going on with this? And then the Jacobites were very pro, like, Catholic, monarch state.
Right, exactly.
So the Jacobites, and then yet another mysterious Scotsman with, a dubious background, Michael Ramsey, helped set up and revive the Knights Templar. And this guy had a whole bunch of, smoke to blow up everyone's ass about like
Chevalier Ramsey. Yes.
How the fucking Templar, went underground for, a couple centuries.
And now have resurfaced.
Kept developing the traditions, keeping them alive, and now they're back.
And you know what? Like, to his credit, I don't know that he knew this or not, but some of them, I mean, like, yes, there are a few of the Templars that, they went into hiding and they just kept to themselves. Very scant few. And they actually came in and rejoined with the Freemasons and were like, oh yeah, sure. You guys got your, like, we're the modern, day we're the modern day Templars or whatever, even though, again, it was still bullshit. And this was just something that they created for themselves, to pull in followers or whatever.
You got to create like a new narrative.
I just think that they were. I just think those Templars that survived were opportunists and didn't give a fuck, kind of thing. As far as like
the whole like Machiavellian thing that they were talking about earlier.
Sure, because like I don't know. Like I'm speculating here, but it just seems like they were just trying to keep their beliefs going. They didn't really care as much as the Freemasons did about whether it's authentic or not necessarily. Otherwise, we would have heard that. I assume we would have heard about
what these Freemason groups were about. They were very politically oriented.
Right,
pro-monarchy, anti-monarchical.
Yep.
Pro-Protestant, pro-Catholic, and these various branches, if they are indeed offshoots of brotherhood activity, then they're just keeping people at each other's fucking throats. Now it's over, whose God's dick is bigger than, the same God, but apparently we have a different perspective on it.
It's all the custodians, baby. It's a lie. There is no dick.
So you also get the formation of, I cannot remember what the lodge was named.
The Derwentwater Lodge?
Well, the Earl of Derwentwater or whatever, like, set up the lodge, and he was like the Grand Master of it, but I don't remember what the fuck it was called. Was it called the Derwentwater Lodge?
Hold on. No.
Oh, yeah, it was the Derwentwater Lodge, yeah.
Well,
so...
okay, yeah, I know. I'm getting ahead of myself.
But just like the Mother Grand Lodge, they shifted from operative to speculative Freemasonry, and they did the same game of taking the tools of the trade of the Knights Templar and converting them into mystical like symbols,
right?
Associated with knowledge claims or whatever. Like I don't know. I don't know the secret handshake and.
Extend the
Although,
pinky.
evidently, I would have been like the 5th generation of Masons in like on like my mom's side of the family or whatever. Like,
Cool.
my fucking uncle is like the youngest Shriner in his state or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, nah, just like frats. It sounds like an expensive club.
Yeah, no. So are the fees.
You gotta pay your dues, you know.
No, fuck that.
How am I going to get the knowledge unless I pay? Oh, fuck, Dianetics. Let's go. So Ramsey was the dude, even with his dubious claims of like, oh, the Freemasons just went silent and reemerged when they were ready to come back on the scene. He's the one who suggested that the blue degrees were just okay, now we know that you're down to ride.
Right.
Now we're going to get into the true degrees.
It's good stuff.
And you can start really learning some shit. And by the way, it all kind of played out. You get 2 major systems. You get the Scottish Rite and the York Rite. Scottish Rite has 33 degrees of Masonry, and Knight Templars have 10. This is also just to reinforce the idea that these new Masonry groups are politically motivated. Was the fact that Ramsey's true degrees, the 4th, 5th, and 6th degrees of Freemasonry, they all related somehow to why the Stuarts should be on the throne in England.
I mean, like, weren't they like designed as a form of grooming for that particular form of support? Like because they were pro monarchy, or I guess pro traditional monarchy. I guess. What does it say here? Oh, damn! I was just looking at that. Here we go. Many people viewed Scottish Freemasonry as a clever attempt to lure Freemasons away from the Mother Grand Lodge system, which supported the Hanoverian monarchy, and turn the new converts into pro-Stuart Masons. And then the Stuarts themselves joined Ramsey's.
Right, that next paragraph, I was just checking it out a little bit myself, you know. Then you have actually members of the Stuart family joining into this system of Freemasonry.
Right. And then they adopt a Templar title.
Which must have been a really nice, you know, feather in the hat for Ramsey, because not only is he promoting this agenda, but also members of the royal family they're supporting are joining up after a while and giving that some credence, I would assume, or I would think
legitimacy to his claim, or rather to his
or whatever, or
to his revolution.
Or not legitimacy, or maybe just like moral support is like the term that I'm coming up with, even though that's not what I really want to get at. Well,
like as far as they're concerned, they're on the side of the right.
But I don't think that word encapsulates what I was trying to get at, but it's close enough. Just had to consult my thesaurus and then came up empty. So, oops.
Yeah, so
I think the last thing that's really of import, despite Ramsey's bullshit story or whatever, but getting to the Kilwinning Lodge. So Bradley writes that Scotland has long been an important center of Masonic activity. The earliest of the old Masonic guilds in Scotland had been founded at Kilwinning in 1120 AD. By 1670, the Kilwinning Lodge was already practicing speculative Freemasonry, although in name, it was still an operative lodge. But the Kilwinning Lodge is unique because it is independent of all these other fucking assholes that just popped up. The Grandmother Lodge of England, the Derwentwater Lodge.
It's been around. It's been around forever.
And importantly, sorry, I was thinking of the St. Andrew's Lodge, which is important later because that's who the United States hits up.
Yep.
And the rest of this chapter is kind of trying to truth some of Ramsay's claims and test them against actual like history of Masonic activity in Europe, and it's claimed that it kind of died and came back, but the Kilwinning Lodge says differently,
right? Being the old, if not the oldest, one of the oldest lodges that they were. I was just looking at it here. They were granting charters since the early 15th century, and so they Derwentwater claimed to have received their authorization from Kilwinning to establish Templar degrees in Europe.
It's going to tie into our chapter on the formation of America here in a bit, but it's significant that the St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, they got their charter from the Kilwinning Lodge, not the Mother Grand Lodge of England. That was details aside. The Kilwinning Lodge has remained an independent, like Freemasonic institution for a very long time.
We're going to get a bit more into that. Into the American Freemasonry developments in a later chapter.
But to once again quote Bramley directly, he says, understandably, the Scottish lodges were highly secretive about their Templar activities. We only know about the 1762 Templar charter to St. Andrew's Lodge from records found in Boston. So it's just fascinating. Like, these guys apparently didn't keep records, or whatever.
Well, if they did, they were destroyed. Yeah, because there are several.
I don't know if they were destroyed or not. It's just interesting. That the only record of the St. Andrew's Lodge or whatever the fuck it was called. Yeah, St. Andrew's Lodge. Yeah. The only proof of that happening is on U.S. soil on documents here. It's like, how do you actually demonstrate that the shit was actually conferred upon the St. Andrew's Lodge, as far as like the title to make your own fucking lodge or whatever.
And then, like we were talking about earlier, that's where it goes directly to mention that one sentence about how the Freemasons existed supposedly even before the Knights Templar. Yeah. But there's circumstantial evidence that the Knights may have been the ones who brought the blue degrees to England, and then that's where they talk about how the blue degrees were practiced centuries earlier by the assassin sect of Persia, and through frequent contact with the assassins, the Templars were introduced to this system during the period of peace that. The 10 years piece.
Way too fucking convenient.
It does. It's very easily explained.
The 1 10-year truce where Bradley's arguing that people are more inclined to be peaceable than warring.
Right. So
that's in that 10-year period. Apparently, the assassins and the fucking Knight Templar got so tight that very, very secret traditions from the assassins.
It's not fucking. It's not
shared. I don't buy that.
It's not fucking referenced. But he very casually throws this in there, where he says. during the periods when they were not fighting against each other, the assassins established treaties.
Fails.
One treaty, let me just go through it real quick because it's very.
Yeah, you're good, man. It's worthwhile for those.
It's silly. I think. It's really silly how he throws this in there, and you're just like, why is this like an afterthought? I don't understand. You make it sound like just like the footnote of a footnote of sure, why not? I should mention this. But the Templar Knights said,
this sort of shit. Before you get into it, Roland, I'm just going to preface your little bit by saying that this is why there's probably no authorized ebook version of this shit, because people can search a fucking document rather than trying to do what I did and go and reread a chapter I read 3 weeks ago and try to find the one little tie-in for this claim in this chapter, and it came up empty.
No, you're not, because
so maybe that's why there's no ebook.
Maybe. So
too easy to fact check when you can Control F around the document.
yeah. He doesn't want to work against
okay, so
himself.
go ahead.
He doesn't want to work against himself. Okay, so the Templar Knights
allegedly got the blue degrees going.
Yeah, they like we mentioned, the Templar Knights had frequent contact with the assassins during the Crusades. During during that very brief period of peace that they had, the assassins and Templars established treaties and engaged in other relations. And this is where he throws it out verbatim. One treaty even allowed the Templars to build several fortresses on assassin territory. It is believed.
Actually, I think that was part of the 10-year truce. Because
no, it was. But again, like. He only mentions it.
But yeah, but he doesn't mention that. Yeah, because all it mentioned was that in chapter 15 was that Christians were allowed to be in Jerusalem as long as they did not arm themselves. But there was mention of.
Oh, by the way, the meaning of life is.
Build some fortresses. Sure, what the hell? Here,
so it is believed by some
ally.
By some historians, it is believed that during those peaceful interludes, the Templars learned. Like, what historians, motherfucker? What are you talking about?
I think I wrote that exact thing.
The Templars learned about the assassins' extensive mystical teachings and incorporated some of those teachings into the Templar system. It is therefore quite possible that the Templars did indeed have the blue degrees long before they were established by the English Mother Grand Lodge. What? Are you fucking like... This is dumb. This is at the end of the chapter. This is where you're supposed to throw in like the reiteration of the main themes of this chapter. And he just fucking drops this here. And
yeah, let's just talk about the assassins and the blue degrees real quick.
Right.
And
so it's not important. I'm just going to talk about it for the rest of the book.
The 3 notes I wrote on these 2 pages. One was, okay, you're really fucking reaching here. The second was, see, fuck you. You totally didn't bring up blue degrees in chapter 15.
No, like this is.
And then the last note was, why do you spend so much fucking time on the blue degrees origin shit? You know, where it's all like hearsay, basically, because this is total Bramley hearsay, in my opinion, because
it is. There are no references.
He's always so good about like,
this is all.
Let me bring out some block quote or to cite this historian directly.
Historians.
But he gets into those some historians or a noted historian, like he doesn't name them. Then you gotta fucking watch his ass.
Who the fuck?
Because there's about to be some fucking creative what the fuck? Some artistic liberty is about to be taken with the truth.
It's a nice way. It's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, he's a very very crafty with his bullshit smithing here. Yeah,
because he spends
a very particular scent.
Is it really crafty, or is it just
talking about the blue degrees and their origins?
Well, I mean,
and then he ends this fucking
lazy.
Chapter
by saying absolutely fucking lazy. No.
Whatever the ultimate truth of the origins of the blue degrees and Scottish degrees may have been,
it's not
both
lazy
systems
bullshit.
gained great popularity.
It's thick bullshit.
The Scottish degrees eventually came to dominate nearly all of Freemasonry. On continental Europe, the center of Scottish Freemasonry proved to be Germany, where the same clique of German petty parties or princes we've been observing soon emerge as leaders as leaders in the new Templar Freemasonry. So basically, he spent like 2 pages going like, whatever the truth is. Well, I mean, the big part is that I could have like not wasted 2 pages on was that, you know, these petty princes that are like renting all these mercenaries out and shit, they're about to become big ballers in masonry. Instead of going as like 2 page of like speculation versus the almost 500 pages of speculation that are found in this tome.
Onwards to chapter 25.
Yes.
Chapter 25. The King Rats.
The term King Rats is basically referring to elites that are only atop a prisoner hierarchy. So basically, they're pretty much slaves unto themselves, and they're just the higher tier of slaves.
Right.
And basically the term, according to Bramley, comes from a James Clavell novel, which was later made into a Hollywood movie. Not that that's important necessarily. Yeah. But the story of the King Rat concerns a group of American and British soldiers being held captive in a Japanese prisoner of war camp during World War II. And through their clever bargaining and organization, one of the American prisoners, Corporal King, manages to amass a wealth of material goods desperately craved by the other prisoners of war, and as a result, he sits at the top of a prisoner hierarchy and is often able to buy loyalty. And then he says with like a cigarette or a fresh egg. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
Menthols, please. Hundreds.
so Bramley pretty much goes into the movie a little bit, but
Those fucking eggs better be grass-fed. Motherfuckers.
and he says that
Are those
the King Rat, the prisoner on top, basically enjoys luxury of, I guess, prison, what that most prisoners crave.
You're right.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you gotta love those prison comforts or whatever sitting at the top.
They're better for you.
And he mentions that the actual King Rat in the cinema was a sympathetic character, but I don't know if you can attribute that to actual real life.
So,
person,
like
King
the way
Rats.
they attribute these to the bank aristocracy and like the rest of them is that these are people that live within the custodial system. That is to say, they think, but they don't realize it. They don't actually understand that they themselves are the rats within the cage here. They think.
I sometimes wonder if they do.
Sure,
know,
why
though,
not?
man.
I don't know.
Like, because the thing is,
Get that.
because they think about it like, okay, well, the fringe benefits of being the grand poobah, even in this, shitty setup where aliens are our bosses.
So
I still am above.
Well,
That's,
I guess
that's an interesting question,
I
dude.
guess it would.
It goes back to like fucking the Animorphs book series where the Yurt controllers were willing human
we have
subjects
no
or
way-
willing, alien subjects to get infested to
we have no
help
way of
the
knowing.
end
Bramley
game
doesn't
move
explain
forward.
that either. That any of these people understand
and-
that they're running on the mouse wheel or whatever kind of thing themselves.
Well, and then Ike will say that, these people know there's a mouse wheel and they're reptilians.
Yeah,
they're part of they're not like king rats in any regard. Like they're part of the system of oppression proper, which is a neat, like logical
assumption,
extension
but yes.
from like Bramley.
Yeah, you think of those elites aren't exactly, like you said, they're not part of the prisoner system. They are the wardens. Right. So,
I mean, it's not.
Right.
I wouldn't consider it out of the realm of possibility, but Bramley doesn't suggest anything to the otherwise.
No, he doesn't. But it's just a moment of like, hey, particularly we have like the same families dominating for so long.
Maybe.
Like, you may have like Mayor Amschel get in the know, but then subsequent generations of Rothschilds are just, beneficiaries of that. And they may not be in the know, but something tells me, or something just kind of like just niggles at the back of my mind to go like, there's probably like some, perhaps not directing, but some subterfuge by some of these humans to, improve their own positions in this nightmare situation.
In terms of how Bramley describes all of this, he always indirectly refers to the custodians. He says all of the systems, all of the organizations within this book trace their influences, trace their symbolism, trace their ideals and their goals back to the custodial influence. He never says.
Which makes me think that like
no, it's fine.
He didn't. Sorry to cut you off, but like just I think importantly, I don't think that he spent enough time.
Absolutely, dude.
Even though it's like the first half of the book, but he spent talking about
this
the
thing is
custodial
this
society.
This thing is a
whatever.
fucking
but
like a philosophical piece of Swiss cheese.
well,
There are so many holes.
That's the reason why I always consider this one like part of the natural progression of things. So you read about the custodial gods in like with Sitchin, and then you come to this one where he's talking more about earthly matters. Again, I don't really after the custodial.
Yeah, after the custodial society is kind of
and
like
this is just
taken foot
their influence amongst the human race. But yeah, so you would get more of the custodial backstory with Sitchin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I remember now. He did a weak job now of really setting up the Brotherhood and their importance.
He does not shut up about
He
them.
does devote chapters to them, but it's like just quick little like things of like lip service to acknowledge that they were around. But in the latter half of the book, it's just, oh, this is an offshoot of custodial Brotherhood activity or whatever, but he doesn't ever
I think it's also the fact that
it is. But it's indirect and it's all implied or whatever that they're trying to keep us, fighting.
But you have to like also think about the fact that like he's making these claims, but where's the actual proof that you can actually revert back to?
I mean, sure, like you're not gonna have direct proof, but like you can still. Yeah, you can still.
I agree.
Like he can still in these fucking in this book
build a body of suggestionable evidence.
This what this is.
No.
Implications, assumptions, suggestions are just all in this book.
Like his references are so poor. This is basically meant like this is at best like you're meant to infer from what he writes here that.
Well, sure. I mean
that it's possible he's right, but he like. So the difference, I mean, we had problems before with Sitchin referencing things, but like also, I would say that like it's still he does a way better job.
But I mean, if you look back, I mean, like
of incorporating text.
He wrote this book, but like even on his website, he can say, well, all of it can kind of be debunked, and he hopes that it kind of is, because he's not saying that this is all factual and true. Yeah. He's just saying like this is like kind of like the information I've gathered, and he was like, I hope I'm wrong. Basically, that's what he said. Those are his own fucking words,
Yeah.
So you don't really know how to take what he's saying here, like entirely. You know what I mean? So, like you said, he just leads you to infer a lot of.
It just seems odd that like you spend this amount of time doing this kind of research and compiling this information. And yet, you don't take it seriously yourself.
This book is a big question. It's like hey, what if? Here it is. Like
it's very strange to not be to be dismissive of your own work. I guess like that dismissive of it because I mean like I would say like myself, like having like a slight amount of experience of like actually doing research. That like I don't take like a humble approach to things, but like I do understand that like there's a greater body of knowledge out there that I'm sort of trying to contribute to in some sense. But like nothing on this particular kind of scale. Like this kind of thing here is if I spent the time to put out something, that covers this breadth of like topics and like tries to tie it all in together into a cohesive narrative sort of thing, like that would, I assume he's trying to do. Like I wouldn't necessarily be as like take a massive shit on it. Like he's sort of
flippant.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't quite describe what it seems to me like that he does here. Yeah. Like he is fairly dismissive of this information. And like that it does seem kind of strange to me. I don't know.
I'm really curious though. Like it's going to become relevant in a later chapter, the last chapter we'll talk about today, but I wonder about some of Bramley's responses to some of the claims he made in the late 80s or 90s. This book came out like 89 or something like that.
As a question down, you've read way the hell past this than I have, and I assume you have as well, Ray, or?
I've read the book before.
Right.
89, yeah.
Does any of this sound like odd that I'm sort of finding questionable or confusing?
Well, no, I mean, but that's the thing.
His approach to his own work, because I don't know, like if I was that, I guess in that much disbelief of my own theories, like why finish it? Why keep going?
Well,
I don't think that he doesn't believe it.
It's not even like
talk about. I hope I'm wrong.
And
he starts off the book saying the last
right.
thing
It doesn't even.
it's
It's way past like the boundaries of like what I would consider to be humble. Like, oh, in my honest opinion here, in my little when I search, no, he's flat out like just he wants to be wrong kind of thing. Like so.
Well, because it just makes it. I mean, this whole. Yeah, exactly. The world he's posing
it's a
is not
proposition.
very good.
Like what he unveiled, like it's fucking scary. And this is before like stuff got really popularized in like the 90s. I mean, like you had the X-Files come out, that helps, put certain ideas, or at least I guess sets the stage for minds to be more receptive to some of these ideas. But he published the book in 89, but I'm curious what he would have to say about some of the claims he made based off of like what mainstream academics are saying about like, specifically like the, rise of civilization in the Americas versus the timeline he gave it. Cause we're talking, about 1,000 years of difference or so at the minimum of like the timeline that he was, I don't think he was engaging in poor scholarship.
So just
at the time, that's what they thought, like when the Olmecs, kind of like.
But you also have to remember that he's also
Mexico.
not a scholar necessarily.
Okay.
He's just a guy who was just.
Well,
no. I think more from like
otherwise
credential, like actual credentials and stuff like that. I mean.
Oh, well, the thing is, like, he was working on like his thesis on like warfare, and then I don't know if he ever finished it, but he stumbled upon this shit and decided to write on this. So I would suggest that he was an academic in some way. And like a serious researcher. I mean, he was working on fucking master's thesis. Like those are, I mean, when you're done with them, they're just a fucking union card. You can get entrance into the hallowed halls of.
They hang your jersey from the gym ceiling.
But
so let's go back to this chapter regarding the king rats. Roland, do you have any thoughts on what's going on here? Or
I like the metaphor, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word that they use for this. It's easy to understand. Yeah, with the king rats.
With the king rats.
And how.
But importantly, in this chapter, was it around the 1770s it was? Sometime in the 18th century, though, German Freemasons adopted the strict observance. And the strict observance was basically the word of a Mason higher than you is like the word of God. The strict observance, it should just be called the strict obedience because that's what it is. Like, and of course, once again, Scotland gets invoked where the mysterious unknown superior of this branch of Freemasonry is in Scotland somewhere.
The secret leader.
And, so it was a little earlier because by 1750, the Grand Masters of the Strict Observance became Baron von Hund. And this guy is fucking great, man. Like, I love these, like, cult leaders or, like, secret society leaders because Baron von Hund claimed that not only did he know Charles Edward, who I believe Charles Edward was like one of the kings.
Yeah, he also said he'd met the unknown superior.
Right. And the unknown superior. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I know him. Great guy. I
love Jesus.
Gave me this tie, cool. Actually. He's fucking nice. So Von Hund and the strict observance, he went on a major campaign to try to promote the strict observance throughout European Masonic societies.
They've all been created by the beginning of his Grand Mastership. He was initiated in the Order of the Temple. This sort of just again folds back into the Freemasons trying to go back and say, like, hey, like we're the modern adaptation of the Templar Knights. And like, yeah, right here where he mentions it, the Order of the Temple, i.e. the Templar Knights by Lord Kilmarnock, some nobleman. And then that's when he mentions, I met Freemason Jesus, the unknown superior, and Charles Edward. He apparently went on a mission to reestablish the Templar Knights in Europe. He was just trying to raise a lot of money. He's branded, yeah.
Although he got called a fraud, kind of like Ramsey did with some of like Ramsey's bullshit claims. They called Ramsey a fucking liar. They called Von Hund a fucking charlatan, and he kind of fell out of favor.
So like through this chapter, is he basically giving examples of like a certain, sects or like societies or that are like pledging to like an unknown superior, like examples of that? Again, I told you I forgot to read this chapter. So.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's cool, dude. Not exactly.
Not so much, man. He's more tracing the development of Freemasonry in Germany during the 1700s specifically, and then moves to talk about some of the other Knights organizations that kind of like went out of favor after the Crusades, but then had a resurgence, like the Teutonic Knights.
And are all these like, again, is it like showing that these people are like, they're still kind of in that strict observance? Is that just kind of like their main, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Sure, yeah.
Like flavor of Freemasonry? Yeah, kind of, yeah. Because the strict observance, as far as I could really tell, it's when you get like the creation of a unknown superior kind of figure, as well as the idea that members that are ranked up higher than you, like you have to obey them and everything they fucking say. I think those are the two critical things.
Vow of obedience. You take the vow of obedience.
To the effect of the first, I'm not so certain. To the second, that would just be, the potentially like the further perpetuation of some of these like mystic traditions and secrecy surrounding the organization. Like you have to trust your uppers or whatever bullshit. I don't know. Like it's kind of a weird situation to kind of sort out. Because I'm trying to think of like going back to like, the moods and motivations behind some of these, decided steps in certain directions by these various Freemason groups in the 1700s. As I drink more beer to help my thought process.
Let's see.
I mean, he just goes into jump back to some of the history of like the Teutonic Knights, the Hospitaller Knights, which again, this is just, it's hard to follow. He's jumping around a lot because we ended off in the 18th century, and like talking about them, he heads back into the 13th. So it's like a bit of a jump there, buddy. So I don't know that we necessarily need to, like, I'm trying to find in here, like, what particularly relevant. Relevant. I need more ice spiked.
The alcohol is taking effect.
Starting to, but I'm struggling to consider what is relevant here, man.
Goes back into the whole scam of renting German mercenaries to.
That's what I'm saying, because England, the title of this is King Rex. So basically, you're just like discussing like the hierarchy of the Masons and stuff. You know.
You know, and arguably like Frederick II, the guy who set up the truce among or between the Muslims and Christians during the Crusades. Apparently, he tried to play both sides of the. You know, he was kind of a king rat in certain regards.
He's just doing what he was supposed to. Where's he going to profit from? You know.
Well.
Yeah. So.
To an extent, yes.
Well, that would be the only reason, right?
According to Bramley, his goal was the militaristic expansion of the Prussian kingdom, and he was not above abiding insurrection and being fickle in his political alliances to achieve his goal. So in the 1740s, Frederick had a political alliance with France. France was actively supporting the Jacobites against the Hanoverians, and rumors circulated in London that Frederick was helping the Jacobites prepare for the big invasion of France in 1745. Then Frederick then shifted back to supporting English interests. And in doing so, he not only gained money but territory as well, because he got into the game of pimping out mercenaries to go fight English conflicts and reaped a massive profit from that.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there, man. Does any of that lead into Frederick the sequel becoming the King of Prussia?
It kind of was, yes. I was talking about like after he became King of Prussia, his goal became like militaristic expansion, and how he flipped from aligning with France then to England, and then pimped out German mercenaries to England and made a bunch of fucking money.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, at that point, like his goal was just the expansion of the strict observance and the Masonic order, right? So let's see.
And really, this chapter goes into a bunch of detail on the pimping of mercenaries from these various German principalities. But
would you say it's like relevant to the major theme of this book?
No, it is because it ties.
So, but getting back to this, and it's a question that I was mostly entertaining just a bit ago was, you know, the role of the Brotherhood in these things. And so Bramley then goes on to write, how important a role did the Brotherhood itself really play in manipulating these affairs? To determine if there was truly active Brotherhood involvement of a Machiavellian nature, it would help to discover if there was any single Brotherhood agent who participated in one faction and then the other. We would require a Brotherhood agent traveling in all circles, from the Jacobites to the electors of Hesse, from the King of France to Prussia.
The next chapter, which is it describes someone who does that exact thing. Yeah.
Chapter 26. The Count of Saint Germain.
This wacky ass dude is like it's like, do you remember that episode of Always Sunny where Mac is like, I'm playing both sides?
Yeah.
But he's saying it out loud to people and they're like, we know.
Yes. Machiavelli. Yes.
This guy is like equal parts Mac, but like also, you know, to a degree successful. He does get caught here and there, but he's actually able to create like a very.
So is he like a dentist using the Mac system, move after completion?
Maybe.
There's a lot of mystery surrounding this guy.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't really know when he was born.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and so Bramley talks about like the potential parentage of Saint Germain, and supposed to be the kid of some Transylvanian ruler. And his real name, I guess I could understand why he changed it to the Count of Saint Germain, because that sounds way sexier than I'm Leopold George.
And I just want to. Did they mention, like, is there like some more of a shroud of a cloak of mystery around this person? Because it mentions here that there was a third child from the union of when it was the will of the Francis. The sequel was published in 1737, and a third unnamed son was mentioned as a beneficiary, and it was Leopold George, who was the eldest son to the Transylvanian throne. And I mean, jeez, I'm gonna leave that in. You farted. You fucking farted, dude. God damn.
Goddamn barking tree spider season.
Who did that? Did you hear that? Who was that? Was that you? Me?
Anyways.
Was that you, me? Did you do that again, me?
Anyways,
there's a bit of a discrepancy on when he was born, which is either 1691 or 1696. God, I hope it doesn't smell.
Speaking of discrepancies, I'm going to shit on Bramley real quick. I brought this up to you guys, but in his opening paragraph, he talks about how there's many articles and at least one book covering this guy's life. He cites 3 fucking sources in this entire fucking chapter. 3 sources. Even though there's supposed to be several documents like pertaining to this guy's life.
Dude, how do these fucking writers get away with this bullshit? Like, we would have been failed so fucking fast.
You know you can self-publish, right?
Yes, but is that what this is?
I know this actual publishing company, but I'm just saying, like,
nowadays you can self-publish.
Yes, nowadays you can self. But I'm pretty sure back then you could have as well. I mean, the publishing companies, like, you probably had a way. As long as you fork over the fucking money, someone's gonna make the book for you. You just have to make the book.
Okay.
Roland. You literally have to make the physical.
Maybe. Well,
and make copies of it. Like,
so you're just paying for the paper.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, if you are funding it yourself, you can make this happen. But anyways,
yeah, like, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you ever watch Peep Show, Roland?
Ridiculously funny. Also,
what was it? The Accounting Secrets of the Pharaohs or whatever, that fucking book that Mark was trying to write, and he tried to self-publish it.
Again.
Ray, that's a great fucking
times.
show, by the way.
Oh yeah, I love those guys, but my favorite is still by far Sir Digby Chicken Caesar.
That's a different show.
I know
well, yeah, that's a different show, though.
That Mitchell and Webb show or whatever, where he's like.
Can we describe Saint Germain a bit, like, as the person that he was? He was a gifted musician, and he wrote musical compositions,
and also apparently quite mad.
Yeah, like he was, fucking around with all these royal courts of Europe and still publishing music, like, left and right. Like, apparently he was like kind of underground for a year somewhere in his travels, and he produced like 9 like pieces of music.
One of the, I guess, the little excerpts here that Bramley includes is that British authorities did not believe that Saint Germain was in London to pursue a musical career. However, in December of 1745, with the Jacobite invasion underway, Saint Germain was arrested by the British on a suspicion of being a Jacobite agent. It says that he was released when rumored letters from Charles Edward, leader of the Stuart invasion, were not found on him. But like this says
they frisked him and said, "Oh, you're cool." Goodbye.
Says the other day they seized an odd man who goes by the name of Count Saint Germain, and he has been here these 2 years and will not tell who he is or whence.
Yeah,
but professes 2 very wonderful things.
How do you imagine that conversation goes? Who are you? I'm the Count of Saint Germain.
Hold on. This is.
Well, we never heard of you. Who are you? That's
me.
I'm a man of mystery.
Tell us your fucking name.
Here, where I
just did.
The Count of Saint Germain started.
Swear to Mary.
Whatever. Secret military organization. Spy organization that Austin Powers was a part of. So, like, fucking Saint Germain was the first international.
This are the 2 things that he professed 2 very wonderful things, and here they are. It says the first, that he does not go by his right name, and the second, that he never had any dealings or desired to have any dealings with any woman. What does that mean? Was he a virgin?
Yeah,
He's gay. Okay.
super gay. Probably.
It says
He was gay.
they.
Yeah, nay,
exactly.
nor
Like
with
the polite
any
way of saying
what's
someone
it?
was gay back in the day.
Succendium.
Bramley keeps referring to him as flamboyant, so I think he probably understands.
Yeah.
that. Who cares? He's gay. Yeah.
But he was a little I too.
Haven't heard that in a while, but yeah. And Saint Germain pretty much was. It talks about in the chapter that he could kind of wheel and deal his way through most
He was-
countries and stuff like that. So he was a very charming character.
Right.
Or he had many connections.
For the
I
most
don't know.
part, he did spend
Well,
quite
yeah,
a bit of time in
so-
jail too, but he seemed to always get out.
Well, in between, but always it was like,
Right, exactly.
Like we found that you're not the type
And
of
then-
subversive
and
that
then,
we thought
like,
you
you
were.
turn around and be
We'll kick you
like-
back out of jail.
Fooled you!
But-
I'm a spy, pew, or whatever, and like just run away, like because
But I mean, like fucking Saint Germain in his life, like just to go through
Right.
all the countries that he
Yeah,
bounced
thank you.
back and
Oh,
forth
man,
from. I
so
have a
helpful.
list here. So he went to Austria or England, then Austria, then France, then England, then France, then Holland, then England, then France.
during
then
times when they
Russia,
were
then
all
France, and
at each
Germany.
other's throats, and
He's very, very worldly.
he would play them all against each other essentially, and like worked his way into the aristocracies.
Oh, and apart from like being a talented musician and
Yeah.
political agents for the Brotherhood, allegedly.
Yeah.
Right. That was
also
one
an
of the
alchemist.
ties. That was one of the main ties into the Brotherhood because alchemy
he,
is
he claimed to have possession of the alchemaic
alchemic. You got it.
elixir of life.
Yep.
Basically,
what did he say? He said, "Oh fuck!" He said something.
Basically, it's
about-
I guess the potion of eternal life.
yeah,
Basically, is what
yeah,
he
yeah,
said
yeah.
he has.
Oh, but he told that one. Are you thinking about where he
Yeah.
told that one dude? He's like, I like to make people think
Yeah.
that I've been
Yeah.
around
I'm trying
longer
to
than I
find
have
it.
been or whatever.
Oh.
Like, it's like he doesn't explicitly state that he is like
Yeah, he's
ancient,
like-
but he lets people believe
Yeah,
it.
he's just
Like,
fucking with
it's-
people.
Yeah,
It's
he
insane.
basically
It's
says it
hilarious.
amuses him to just let people think whatever they're going to
Right.
think.
Suckers. Now feed me. I'm hungry. All right. Like, I'll take a piece of that turkey leg.
Here,
That's-
I have a page 268. I guess just after the quote here, or the excerpt, it says it was after his reported death that Saint
Right.
Germain's true status within the Brotherhood emerged. And not only was Saint Germain portrayed as one of the highest representatives of the Brotherhood, he was also deified as a physically immortal being who did not age or die. And a number of his contemporary admirers claimed that they saw Saint Germain at times when it should have been impossible for them to do so because of Saint Germain's age. And they yeah,
You know,
Yeah, so supposed to die like 1760-ish, was supposed to be seen in 1785.
yeah, like,
And a few
but
other momentous times in history. But as recently as hanging out in fucking Russia in the 19 teens before the
Right.
Bolshevik Revolution popped off. So people have claimed to see the Count of Saint Germain.
They met
and then
him.
People have also claimed that this figure claimed to be the figure.
well, I
of
mean,
Saint
he already
Germain.
laid the foundation for his possible immortality with the fact that he's claiming that he has a possession of this elixir,
Right.
And knowing alchemy and all this kind of stuff. Being a charming character, I mean, someone's going to claim that they are Saint Germain. I mean,
right.
that legend
So,
just like lives on. So I mean, you could pretty
as
much be anyone at anywhere. At any
I thought it
time.
was
Yeah, like I'm kind of curious about like the importance of an immortal being to the interests of the Brotherhood at this time, because there are several other important Brotherhood figures through history that have come about that they could have easily gone, that's the immortal. Like, here's Moses again, hanging out, still repping that
I just
Brotherhood.
go
But
ahead.
they picked this one man of mystery to lay all of their like hopes and dreams.
Well, we
and
also had like the
on, as far as like
I guess the
living
support
forever or whatever.
like
It's weird. Man.
continuing narrative of him being almost like an immortal person,
Right? Because
by Madame Helena Blavatsky, who is also like a fucking I guess
yeah,
she's like a mystic, yeah.
yeah.
And
like a medium, psychic kind of
she claimed,
person. Like a
her
famous
being
one
the
at that.
co-founder of the Theosophical Society, declared that Saint Germain was one of the hidden masters of Tibet, who secretly controlled the destiny of the world.
I mean, they have no reason like to refute any of this. It just ties in or attracts in more followers to the ideas they have associated to mysticism, the alchemy.
And I'm just curious why Blavatsky tied Germain to Tibetan influences. Like, I just don't know enough about her.
Well, if you're gonna think
aims,
of like
goals,
who, I guess the person
whatever.
that he could claim to be, I mean, he can be pretty much a master of any sort of mystical sect in any part of any country that he's visited at some point or another. I don't know.
Maybe it's just like some sort of tie into legitimacy of Eastern religions and how those possibly have influenced like Christianity themselves. Because, you know, they say like, you know, you talk about Tibet, you think of the gurus, you think of these enlightened ones.
I just think of the Golden Child.
It does.
And then, like,
you did mention that in the 19-teens, Daniel, but like it also
goes
says
further.
in the 1930s.
Yeah, that was the one I wanted
A guy
to read.
in California claimed to have met Saint Germain as well.
Yeah, Guy Ballard.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
claimed
that
he met.
one.
I thought that was really a really
visitation.
interesting end because that's
What's
Isn't that a
interesting
Christian
about this
reference?
chapter, though, is he does, you know, catalog all these activities of the canon of Saint Germain, but nothing in there really, I felt, was properly demonstrated where he was indeed like a Brotherhood agent.
It's just suggested,
or even
it's just
possibly a
suggested
Brotherhood
that,
agent. I just think of him
it's
as
suggested
a
that
fucking
he's like the-
opportunist. Just wherever the wind's blowing favorably,
I
attach
think
yourself
like
to that royal court. Yeah,
Oh, no, no.
the okay. go
As I guess flippant as that would be, Daniel, like he's making these claims about him being like a Brotherhood operative or something like that. I mean, just look at the claim right here. It says where Bramley says, "Were all these witnesses lying?" Referring to the witnesses that claimed to see him after his alleged death.
Right.
And then Bramley literally just says, "Probably not." Like what?
So, geez, where was I going with
He says that the Brotherhood occasionally sponsored resurrections as a way to deify
it
select members.
seems that he's like a almost actual personification of the Brotherhood ideals, the ideas of Machiavellism or whatever. Like this guy goes about living his life pitting these warring factions against each other and thriving to an extent on them. And he himself has teachings, has information based on like Brotherhood tenets. Like the easiest one to point to would be the alchemy or whatever. And again, like he himself being a somewhat of a mystical figure because his own origins themselves are like they're unknown. Yes, exactly. At best,
dubious.
and so, I mean, he could just be another sort of allegory. Fuck, what the fuck is the word? For like another, like a messianic figure that actually does not go about.
Is he a messianic figure that didn't really take
That has no
didn't catch on necessarily?
right? Like he just seems to go about. I don't know. I'm fucking reaching here for the most part. Like I'm trying to draw like parallels to this guy's.
He's Asmodine, bro.
Because look, like that last reference that you mentioned, the one in 1930, like he ends, and I don't know, like if I'm mistaken about this, but that statement, like that's biblical in nature. Guy Ballard claimed he met Saint Germain on Mount Shasta in California, and that Saint Germain helped him establish a new brotherhood branch known as the I Am. We will look at the I Am in a later chapter, and like that's, to me, those are. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, but like those are like Moses with
because when Moses asked God or Joe the burning bush,
thank you.
Who should I say sent me? He says, "I am that I am."
Right. Thank you. That's why I'm just like, okay, those you don't throw those kinds of words around just lightly, kind of thing. Like they have a very heavy.
But it's that could be all just part of his
yes, exactly,
his character, you know,
exactly. But again, that also ties into, again, like the mystique of the
big
messianic. Yes.
Big
or slash absolute fucking faker or whatever.
Yeah, bullshit.
There's no way of knowing.
What if somebody said,
but it even, okay, excuse me. Thank you. Fuck. I was trying to look for that sentence in here. In fact, brotherhood branches deify Saint Germain, which is in all of them, often give him the same spiritual status as Jesus.
Okay, but that's the brotherhood,
right? But again, like I'm trying to like explain the like I guess the sort of like what this guy's whole life like may have represented or may have, you know, like there are parallels in here that suggest a whole lot of ridiculous bullshit.
Well, you think that maybe like if he was part of the brotherhood and maybe he was just that guy that everybody liked because he's a charismatic character, you know, he's very talented, all that kind of nonsense.
You're right.
You know, the kid at school.
Maybe
he was friends with the metalheads and the stoners and the hip hoppers and those fucking preppy motherfuckers.
The brotherhood just used it, you know, like I mean, the brotherhood, like, they're puppet masters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so maybe this is just a guy.
He could have been
they used to like toy with people, you know, like why the fuck not?
He could have been a figurehead.
They seem fairly petty in their ways of doing things, you know, like they're fucking with people to begin with. So
I mean,
maybe it's just a game.
Yes, it seems
Saint Germain is just a game that they're playing with people, you know. I don't know. I'm just bullshit. I'm bullshitting myself too.
Yeah. But again, like, I'm just.
We should write a book.
So I mean that
bullshitter's guide to bullshitting.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That pretty much summarizes like this whole chapter. This guy is. It's hard to nail down what the fuck is going on here. He's just this fantastic motherfucker.
But
floating around.
Bramley basically gives credence or like some kind of validity to Saint Germain because he was able to kind of weave his way into like these very high profile
relationships. Yeah, he had this ridiculous network.
But it wasn't clear that he was like
no, it's not like
directing people necessarily.
Like, at best, he'd be like a counselor.
All he's saying is that like he came into contact with these people and he can kind of like hang out with them and then move on to the next folks. And he's just saying like, that guy seems pretty cool. I mean, I don't know, like if he's like can be considered like a charlatan or something. I really don't know. Basically, Bramley's impressed with his capability to like move in and out of these social circles. It seems that way
because he gave the motherfucker his own goddamn chapter.
Well, fuck. I mean, you know, just the times that he was able to win the grace of the royal courts of England and France, whom he jumped back and forth from several times. You know, that's some smoothness. Like, that's some, hey, baby, I'm back sort of bullshit, you know? Like, yeah, I went out drinking with the boys and fucked a hooker, but I'm back, you know? Like, forgive me.
Come on.
I'll be gone soon.
All right.
Come on. All
right. So, did you want to move on to the next chapter?
But this was a fun chapter, like looking at the life of the dude, but I didn't get a sense of like where he was supposed to be, you know, this brotherhood agent, you know.
Maybe that's where
I just didn't get that.
It kind of seemed like.
Because anytime that he like started to get anything going, he got kicked the fuck
just
out
seemed
of the
kind of
country.
like Brownlow's reaching here. I mean, like,
well, I mean, if Saint Germain's gonna comes back later on, like he's gonna.
No, Bramley reaching? No,
maybe
he'll give us more explanation.
Maybe I don't know. You would.
No spoilers.
You guys would.
You know?
There is a chapter. It's like the return of Saint Germain.
No,
back up
no
with
more
the
spoilers.
resurrection.
No more
Spoiler alert. Yeah, Saint
And we'll
Germain
talk about that
Returns, chapter
on the
35.
next episode.
Chapter 27. Here at night, there at night. Everywhere a motherfucking night. So this chapter, just to loosely cast what it's about the late 1700s in Europe and the further revitalization of Freemasonic groups. Within that vein of like Freemasonry being still important, there was still a focus on the monarchical versus anti-monarchical forces.
It does mention in this chapter, Daniel, a bogus Illuminati.
Oh, the Bavarian Illuminati.
Yes. Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati. Yeah.
The original Illuminati was just a Latin name for the Brotherhood that we mentioned in the last episode, I believe.
And it says it was started in strict observance of the Lodge of Munich.
Munich.
Even after the failure of the Stuart cause, the Templar degrees and flavors were still active, particularly in the monarchical, anti-monarchical like struggle.
It's a fun word.
And we get the introduction of some of the blue degrees into earlier organizations. So a few chapters back, we brought up was it Order of Orange?
Nassau.
And so with the Orange Order, the blue degrees got introduced into them, and it was called the Black Preceptory. And Bramley writes that like even though like members of the Orange Order and the Black Preceptory were supposed to be like equivalent in rank, it was kind of that same situation where it's like you go through the Orange Orders, then you start getting introduced into the Black Preceptories, and then that's where the real mysteries begin to become unveiled for members in the group.
I don't see that.
Do you, Ray?
Yeah, the Black Preceptor, I see.
There you go. Just making sure.
Then we swing into, as we brought up, Adam Weishaupt's like fake Illuminati. And Bramley discredits them pretty quickly. And he gives like pretty short shrift to like Weishaupt's Illuminati, even though like they've been the subject of a lot of attention. Bramley's like, this is not the Illuminati that is actually up to shit. You know, the actual Illuminati is the Brotherhood, which called themselves the Illuminati after a little while. But Weishaupt's Illuminati is fake.
So as a reference to the title itself, is that because they're just kind of popping up everywhere?
It was sort of in the same way that the Freemasons marketed themselves out as, the Knights Templar.
Right.
Only these guys weren't successful or whatever. What does it say here? The original Illuminati, that is to say, like members of the Rosicrucians themselves, were like who were still very much in extent or whatever, came in and like tried to put a stop to this shit, right. Because again, like it was an association that I guess that they had nothing to do with. So, just from the way it looked, they just came in and stopped them. What does it say here? Careful study of the evidence indicates Weishaupt's Illuminati is actually a red herring. Let's see. One can still find books today which theorize Weishaupt's Weishaupt or Weishaupt. It's Weishaupt, right? Was and still is. Weishaupt. Yeah, but it's Weishaupt. Excuse me. Thank you.
Weishaupt, I think.
Heinz, whatever. Feel the rhythm, feel the run. The source of nearly
cool.
What is it? One can still find books today which theorize Weishaupt's Illuminati was and still is the source of nearly all of mankind's social ills. So it was just sort of branded as this, or what they thought was going to be the true Illuminati. And they were trying to sort of encompass or, wrap around the Freemasonry from that. So that was one of the reasons why they came in and stopped it, because they were trying to build themselves as the guys behind the curtain or whatever of everything.
And this ties back to the Rosicrucians Family Fraternis document, where basically it was like the first document that promoted the idea of a New World Order. So Bramley continues and ends this chapter talking about how, Weishaupt and his Illuminati and the other Brotherhood organizations, the transformation of the worldwide landscape that was supposed to happen under the Family Fraternis New World Order is perpetuated by Freemason groups and revolutionary struggles throughout the world
they didn't
in
want
the next
taking
coming chapters.
For their work kind of thing, which is what it seems like they were trying to do. I don't know. But that didn't work. So it's a really short chapter. Not a whole lot here to talk about. Just there's some bullshit this guy tried to do, and it didn't work.
It's like I kind of wonder if this was somewhat of a wasted chapter.
What chapter?
Even invoking
Weishaupt
and his Illuminati.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna put a chapter in this book, I mean, you would hope, especially it's gonna be this short, you would hope at least it would make some kind of a.
There's a point here. This could have been a reference or whatever.
Or it could just be like intertwined with some other chapter itself,
Absolutely.
Did you need to take a break?
I mean, he brings again he brings again, like he talks like the main facilitator, I guess, operative through this chapter is the Rosicrucians, and how they go in and stomp this shit out. Like, why not mention it back then? Like in wherever the fuck chapter before, when they first introduced the history of the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati, that kind of thing. So this is an oddly placed, disjointed sort of chapter. But whatever, let's go on into
chapter 28. American Phoenix. I'll leave that in there. All right?
Piercing hawk scream.
Fucking injured bird.
So, beginning of this chapter, I do want to take a moment and just ask you guys, very sincerely, because I tried to look this up and was somewhat flummoxed with the results. But Brantley writes, when American colonists sailed to North America, the Brotherhood organization sailed with them. In 1694, a group of Rosicrucian leaders from Europe founded a colony in what was today the state of Pennsylvania. Some of their picturesque buildings in Ephrata still stand as a unique tourist attraction. And I've been trying to find where the fucking colony of Ephrata was. I found one reference or a couple references online or whatever, and it just shows old architecture. But when I try to look up like Rosicrucians and Ephrata, Pennsylvania, my search queries were very inconclusive as to what Masonic architecture was supposed to look like in Ephrata.
No, I didn't look for, like I said, most of the time when I'm reading this, mostly unless I need a description of a particular specific thing that he's referencing, just to get more context of how he mentions it in the chapter. No, man, I just take his word for it, because that's basically how I'm approaching this book. Like,
the closest thing I can see here.
Well, we're looking on a Wikipedia page, and it says that Fredia is noteworthy for having been a former seat of the mystic order of the Solitary.
Semi-monastic order of Seventh-day Dunkers.
Is it like a Seventh-day like donut dunkers or something?
We can only assume.
Well, yeah, that's what you do in church after the boring ass service. You get free donuts.
We can only assume
only glazed. Fuck
maybe influenced by a Masonic lodge of some sort, because it's a boys and girls club, and Freemasons were exclusively a dude thing. But shit, there we go.
Yeah, I just when I try to follow that up, because I was like, dude, I've never heard of like this Ephrata in a American context, and you think that would probably be something where it's like of note, even in like high school survey classes on like the foundation of the country. Well, no, but even just mentioning that this fucking place existed, not necessarily that like Rosicrucians, set it up or whatever, but just like, hey, here's this site, has this architecture.
I've always found K through 12 history to be just insanely subjective. Like it's constantly being changed on whatever fucking whimsy, popular whimsy is going on at the time.
Oh, just look at who's in control of like.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen a
The Department of Education is a goddamn dumpster fire at best.
Didn't the mention of like black slaves and Mexican oppression in Texas history books
even though like
a few years ago?
It's fucking stupid.
Like even I think like Cesar Chavez is not like kosher for these fucking books, to reference.
Like every one of these folks
wild,
had man. Particular beliefs that are not kosher today,
so
or even in general. That kind of shit gets brushed out till either.
It's very possible that it was swept under the rug in our generation,
and also
maybe it was available before. We don't know. I don't know.
Not vilify a person who did some good in their life or changed the course of history, because they say the same thing about Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa.
Oh yeah,
Cesar Chavez.
Was it with
everyone's got some shit.
Martin Luther King was a womanizer and a wife beater and sexist.
Woman beater.
Yeah.
Oh Christ. If it isn't being fucked with, it's being reducted.
But I found out today that MLK liked to play pool.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I really did. I truly learned that today. A little factoid.
We found out today that MLK liked to play pool.
Oh, wow.
He was a pool shark.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have the chance to run the table on his ass.
Well, dude, it's just great, man, because
one-handed, baby.
Bullshit. He'd fucking take you out, dude.
Boom. Boom.
The fucking images I fucking saw,
I'll take you to a bar,
had
baby.
all of like his like cronies around him, and I'm sure if he like had a miscue or something like that, they'd be like, "Oh no,
Ray,
that's fine."
Ray, once you get your vaccines, I'll take you
we
to a
didn't
bar.
see nothing.
All right. Shut the fuck up.
We'll go to Fast Eddie's.
Are you just going to web out your way to a victory?
Yeah. I'll that's a shithole. I hate it.
Man, fuck Fast Eddie's,
They had nice
dude.
pool tables.
Just go to the fucking Rose and Lafayette and play pool, and they're like 75 cent
You want me to pop
tables,
the
man.
quarters
It's a
in
better
the fucking
experience,
slot?
dude.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We're better than that, Ray. We're better than that. I'll take you all out to Fast Eddie's.
Oh, fucking asshole. Okay, so
Be a sober
Yeah, no shit. No, we got a pregame.
Bud Light
Sorry.
that we don't want to.
Sorry, not sorry. We'll be ready.
American Phoenix, this chapter, like, what is that referring to, Roland?
I mean, so that was the original bird of the Seal of America. It wasn't the turkey. Oh wait, excuse me, the bald eagle.
Didn't they mistakenly?
Well, interestingly, like,
Yes.
wasn't it like
Yeah.
Ben
Turkey.
Franklin
He did.
to promote the
And that would have been way
fucking
cooler because
turkey?
like turkeys are motherfucking bosses, big ass bastards. The bald eagles are,
Well, my thing is like, people say Phoenix for the early seal, but Maybe Franklin got his way.
Okay, Mr. Tin Hat.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. Like,
I mean, I don't know enough to say either. Like, I didn't even know it was a Phoenix before Bramley.
and how dare you disparage tin hats?
No, I very easily.
The audacity.
No, I always thought it was the eagle.
How dare
myself. Reading this and learning apparently it was the Phoenix. I think it's very cool. I don't necessarily know that I associate all of the symbolism that supposedly, well, the religious symbolism that is sort of expanded on with respect to like just generalized religion. I only understanding the basics of what the Phoenix is, and not actually understanding like, you know, where it sits in I want to say cultural standing, but yeah, like within history, like within mythology, I've never looked into the specifics. If it's, I just understand it's like a Far East of Far East origins. I would have never guessed and had no idea its association like to the Freemasons, or rather to America. So it's interesting, but it is a little hard for me to believe too, because it just, I don't know. I don't think America was, I don't think like the early forefathers were that cool. Okay. I think they just didn't want to pay their taxes. And the general story that I am aware of is that, yeah, Franklin wanted it to be the turkey, and then eventually it was settled on to be,
wanted to be the turkey.
you know, the bald eagle, which, like, okay, whatever, cool. I would have picked the golden eagle myself because that's a big badass motherfucker. But, you know, whatever. That's cool too.
So I guess for our American listeners who have been through approximately 12 years of formal education where the mythos of the American story gets pounded in your head, we're going to assume that everyone's American that's listening to this and kind of skip over some of the details. But what is important to Bramley's tale is that early revolutionary leaders in the United States, or in the colonies of Britain, which became the United States, you had members of Freemason groups leading the charge on everything. You know, from the, you know, specifically, you know, going back to the Boston Tea Party,
Freemason.
It's believed that members from the St. Andrews Lodge
and dressed
were
up
the
like
main
Indians
perpetrators of that.
Tea.
And this is really stupid because they're in the midst of war, right? And they still have like Brits coming through, like kicking down doors, searching shit. Why the fuck, instead of just leaving a blank page on your minutes, was there allegedly just the letter T thrown on the day of the fucking Boston Tea Party? It's like, we're all trying to get caught and become like martyrs.
They'll never catch us.
Like
we're like Robin Hood. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll never
yeah, even though it was a big joke, they're like, oh, like, yeah.
Fucking idiots.
Can you imagine how outrageous or exaggerated those Indian costumes would have been?
I imagine they all had headdresses. They all probably had like assless chaps or some dumb shit. Fucking like, I'd be surprised if they even had moccasins. Like maybe they had their little hatchets or whatever. They were like, boo, 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 you know, like assholes. That's what these were. Yeah, sure. Fucking assholes, mostly.
Right. Let's make it seem like these Native Americans.
But everybody knew, wink, wink, nod, nod. Like it was a joke. It was a joke. They started a war.
Yeah. What were the Brits like watching, going like, it seems the indigenous populations have gone against us too.
What we see here outside of their native native area, these angry Indians.
They're causing quite a bit of inconvenience.
Not the tea. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Quite an inconvenience to the crown.
Oh, no.
It's a good thing we got this backup tea.
Yeah. It's a good thing we have our tea rations. Yeah. No, it was a big joke.
But really, like, Bramley's intent with this chapter is to lay in the idea that Masons had a huge part in the revolution.
Sure.
He does name like a few here. I'm going like up in the chapter where it says Europe provided the Americans with 2 additional Freemasons, which is there were ones before the
Baron von Steuben,
right, the European
Lafayette,
defectors
from Germany.
So these guys were both. Well, the Marquis de Lafayette
No.
was not a Mason yet, but they both came over to the United States.
Lafayette
to help out with the
subsequently
war
became
effort.
a Mason at some point, and he was given a generalship or commander in chief.
Command in chief, which I assume was like like command over a battalion or something, like some sort of like military leader role.
Yeah, they mentioned how like a lot of
there at the time, because he wrote how like, oh yes, or I can't do a French accent worth of shit. So
there you go.
yeah,
I want to be a part of. I want to be all I can be.
yeah, but apparently Washington didn't really like
on, I want to find
Lafayette the time of day until he became a Mason. And then after he got brought into the craft, that's when he was like, oh, well, then the general seemed to really trust me then. And then I got my own command in chief.
I wanted to find that quote.
But Baron von Steuben, the German Mason that came over, he's actually the guy that helped the colonial forces turn into an actual fighting force, not fucking
those are
just
George Washington's
target
troops,
practice
too.
for the
And
British.
Yeah, and George Washington was very much a traditional like war type guy. It's just where you'd march out one group, march out the other group, and they would say fire, and whoever survived would just be like fire again.
Yeah, because like it wasn't talked about in this book, but the development was
right, exactly.
Guerrilla warfare
by the Minutemen,
by the American colonists and shit versus
no,
the Brits.
they weren't,
and the
because
Brits weren't
they
ready
still,
for that kind of warfare.
They had
very traditional type of
right. They
war games, if you will. Like
exactly like the rules of warfare were very, very specific. And in this case, they were like, "Oh no, fuck you, we want to win."
They're basically like, did they just fire without telling us?
Aren't you supposed to say go?
Yeah, right.
We weren't ready. You're supposed to say go in warfare.
Are they using actual bullets?
yeah. You pull, right. Have some fucking military leader out there like, right. You're supposed to say 3, 2, 1, shoot.
And it's supposed to be blanks, for God's sakes.
Fire.
No one is supposed to get injured or killed.
But which is interesting though, because you see the transformation of warfare from the Renaissance to the Glorious Revolution times, where warfare becomes more brutish, efficient, yada yada yada, like overall in the European theater. Then it's fucking funny how like
they're doing the same thing
later. The Brits come and the American colonists are fighting unfair, and they go, "Hey, no, foul! You broke the rules." When warfare had already been like
a red flag or something
changed.
on the play.
Like,
hey, our rules. Yeah, there you go.
Red card them.
You go back over there.
Yeah, we'll go international soccer rules on this.
Football.
Bramley mentions like the philosophical importance of Freemasonry to the American revolutionaries. And he says basically it's all in the symbols. And that the revolutionary leaders chose to represent the new American nation. And they were basically brotherhood Masonic symbols.
Yeah.
And he mentions the seal. Then we talked about the all-seeing eye of God.
Right. The dollar.
Masonic aprons.
Yeah, and then the tie-in back again to the Fama Fraternis, where
George Washington himself.
On the bottom is the inscription Novus Ordo Seclorum, or Seclorum, the beginning of a new order of the ages. The bottom inscription tells us the leaders of the revolution were pursuing a broad universal goal which encompassed much more than their immediate concerns as colonists. They are envisioning a change in the entire world's social order which follows the goals announced in the Fama Fraternis. So once again, it's just like promoting this old Rosicrucian idea of the New World Order. And invoking the New World Order might be kind of silly to our listeners because they're probably all on the NWO shit, like they watch those change.
They saw the WCW.
Yeah.
They're familiar with what's that fucking
DMX? No, what the fuck?
No, that's DX. That's D-Generation X.
D-Generation X. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, Razor Ramon.
Suck it.
Suck it.
Which I think that we should bring that back. Actually, that D-Generation X, suck it shit, fucking hips, feet firmly planted, hips laid out.
I don't know if Shawn Michaels and X-Pac are still around doing their thing.
Yeah,
maybe they are. I don't know.
No,
I don't know, man. Shawn Michaels got to be like 75.
Fucking Undertaker just retired, and he's like in his 80s or some shit. I don't know.
What?
He's old.
The Undertaker's the fucking 80s.
No, he's probably 70s.
No way.
Probably 70s.
That is that's horseshit.
Time to find out.
Oh, Undertaker's 80 years old.
Oh, dude, the Undertaker is the Count of Saint Germain.
He's 500 years old.
He was born in 65.
So, blah.
It's probably 60, maybe. My math is off right now. Close.
Damn.
4 years.
56.
Shy of that.
He's a youngin'.
Oh, dude. So he's born in Houston
he's
and resides in Austin.
Big time.
Mm-hmm. Let's go bum rush Joe
That's
Rogan's fucking podcast studio or whatever. I'm pretty sure he's hanging out with Joe Rogan, I'm sure.
I hope not.
I guess more symbols with again, if you look in the back of a dollar bill, you can see all these symbols,
the
and you're pretty much familiar. Most people ignore
the all-seeing
these symbols
eye.
nowadays. I don't know if there's any emphasis placed on them or question at all.
Not really. Most people don't give a fuck. $1 is $1.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Oh, I can buy a bag of chips.
I get me a soda.
Where's this?
Soda.
And I again, it's we've been recording for a while now, but it says the two major forms of masonry practiced in the United States today are the York Rite and the Scottish Rite.
Right.
Yeah, we did mention those.
Yeah. 10 and 33 degrees, respectively.
Apparently, it just goes on here to show that like the influence of Freemasonry goes throughout all of our modern politics. What does he say here? About a third of all U.S. presidents have been Freemasons, most of them in the Scottish Rite. So,
yeah, I had this moment where I was like, "What the fuck?"
A lot of politicians,
can't be right with that.
A lot of senators, a lot of congressmen.
Because he goes into some stats,
women,
presidents.
Yeah.
But he was like, talking about how Masons constituted over 60% of the Senate in 1924. But then I was like, dude, how could you do that? Like, I ran the math and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Alaska and Hawaii weren't states yet.
Yeah. But those numbers have dropped down since.
Are you sure? I mean, I would say
that's what they suggest here.
I would say there's a presence still there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sure.
I mean, we're not going to get into like the Bilderberg group or anything like that. Skull and Bones.
Fucking Skull and Bones.
Oh, getting into former Masons, though. So in this footnote on the bottom of 285, he goes through a list of like, presidents that have been Masons or whatever. But then at the end, he goes into famous American artists that have also been members, such as Mark Twain, Will Rogers, and W.C. Fields. So I pursued the W.C. Fields link a little bit and found a couple interesting quotes from him. First, never give a sucker an even break. Second, If at first you don't succeed, try again, then quit. No use being a damned fool about it. And if that doesn't sound like brotherhood inspired, I don't know what does, man.
Well, Mark Twain has the Bible according to Mark Twain and Letters from Earth too.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of going against a lot of that as well? Or?
I don't fucking know because admittedly my Twain is a little lacking. He's one of my dad's fucking favorite authors. Like he's read fucking everything that dude wrote.
I actually just purchased the Bible according to Mark Twain. So I haven't delved into it, but I'm kind of curious.
Letters of the Earth or whatever.
Huh?
Can't you get that?
What?
Letters from the Earth.
I have that.
That's supposed to be good too.
Yeah.
I've always been curious about that.
And another early writer that's supposed to be really intriguing is Ambrose Bierce.
Who was it again? I'm sorry, you cut off.
Okay.
Ambrose Bierce.
That sounds a lot more.
He's supposed to be an amazing, radical writer early on as well. But during the American Revolution, importantly, we get our buddy Frederick II back, or Frederick the Great. And apparently he was very pro-revolutionary sentiments because he even shut down his own ports in Germany to Hessian soldiers being shipped out to go fight the revolutionaries. Maybe Frederick the Great was a shithead in certain regards, but I don't know. He seemed to help America's birth out a bit by shutting down his own fucking ports.
Yeah, he supported.
Because also, more importantly, shouldn't he have been a beneficiary of those fucking profits from those Hessian mercs being sent out?
I can't see why not. I mean, it's got.
So it's interesting that although it's not his country, he doesn't give a fuck or whatever, but he's motivated to still stop mercenaries being sent, even though that's going to be a lot of gold in his pocket. And I think that's just interesting. So it's how much of a Brotherhood agent was he, or was
possibly
that part of the plan?
I would also posit that Brownlee does mention, I think a little later, how not all monarchical rulers fit the definition of shitheads. Some of them were actually.
Oh yeah.
Right.
He says not all monarchies are bad or whatever. But then also later in that chapter, just going back into footnotes and shit, he examines whether Frederick the Great was a Mason himself, and evidently there's only one or two entries, kind of like with Thomas Jefferson.
Right, and then other people later claimed that
a lodge,
that he was a member on other. Hold on, I know which one. What the fuck was it?
Well, no. Bramley talks about that because he's as far as Frederick's concerned, either he was not a Mason or he was inactive. And I think the same kind of argument was applied to Thomas Jefferson because he was only listed on as a visitor to one lodge once.
He uses two other references that suggest that his membership within the Freemasons may be possible and or inconclusive. I'm trying to find the page. Where he mentions it. It's a footnote. And I don't know if it's within chapter 28 or the one that talks about Jefferson's membership, possible, probable, mayhaps membership as a Freemason. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, it's on 281. So two important revolutionary leaders who are thought not to have been Freemasons are Samuel Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
Right. So
So it goes on to say that Jefferson's name was recorded in the proceedings of the Grand Lodge of Virginia in 1883 as a visitor to the Charlottesville Lodge number 60 on September 8th or September 20th, 1817.
And then they go on to the Pittsburgh Library Gazette, Volume 1, August 4th, 1828, mentions Jefferson as a notable Mason. During his lifetime, he was even accused of being an agent of Weishaupt's Bavarian Illuminati. More recently, some Rosicrucians have cited Jefferson as a member of their fraternity. So, like, it's confusing. Maybe some of them tried to adopt him in to get that cred going. Others suggest that he was a visitor, and then others further.
But as far as the records are concerned, like, importantly, folks are like, he either wasn't a Mason or he was inactive. Right. But I guess not like actively pursuing.
So there's really no, it's inconclusive at best.
Goals.
Sort of thing. Like, he says, she says, they all care or whatever because he's cool. But
do we want to get to the dick sucking moment that he has in this chapter? With George Mason?
To go just before that, we do talk about the American Revolution and how regarding the Continental Notes and how
yes brought up in an earlier chapter, but the banking system does hit the
doesn't infect
fledgling new United States
economy.
But who was printing the money?
So the promissory notes, the Continental Notes were by definition like promissory notes because they were backed by nothing. But it was like after the war was won, then
and that's when they got fucked
redeemable for cash money.
Oh no!
But they fucked it up, and by the time the actual
those notes were worth nothing
established, the notes were worth like a penny to the dollar.
Just want to bring this.
And somehow we still have a nation because of it.
I want to bring this up here. It says,
mad.
Cooperative. Let me just back up a little bit. It says that these notes were declared legal tender by the Congress with nothing to back them.
Right.
The Continental Congress used the notes to buy the goods it needed to fight the Revolutionary War. Cooperative colonists accepted the money on the promise that the notes would be backed by something after the war was won. And as the Continental Notes continued to come off Ben Franklin's press,
backed by pennies,
inflation set in. So Ben Franklin's press was printing out monies. Inflation set in, and this caused more notes to be printed, which triggered hyperinflation.
They were backed by freedom. Okay. Excuse you.
Yes, 1 cent, 1 cent to the dollar. 1 cent to the dollar.
The promise of freedom.
Pennies.
Because they weren't out of the woods yet, man. They're just like, we're going to win this battle.
Yes, and they basically says like
Can you put a price on patriotism?
They patterned the.
Can you?
They patterned the central bank after the Bank of England.
Yeah, so basically more than a penny per dollar.
They just copied it and also went into. They also went into debt, just like that.
Yeah.
Hooray.
And you want the fact that there's a question that Bramley brings up here on page 290. If anyone you're following along, anyone listening,
how is the American government going to repay?
Yeah,
all of this debt,
and basically
by taking out more debt, baby.
The act of the supreme irony.
Yeah,
you want to read
it's
them?
all one debt, baby. It's
in
fine,
an act of supreme irony. Hamilton wanted to place taxes on goods, just as the British had done prior to the Revolution. After Hamilton became Secretary of Treasury, he pushed through such a tax on distilled liquor. This tax resulted in the famous Whiskey Rebellion, not famous, because of 1794, in which a group of mountain people,
I like that.
Yeah, right,
bunch of fucking trolls and Bigfoots
came down from the cave. Christ. Bramley Wit, cracking in, refused to pay the tax and began to speak openly of rebellion against the new American government. At Hamilton's insistence, President George Washington called out the militia and had the rebellion crushed. Hamilton and his backers had managed to establish in the United States a situation identical in England before the American Revolution, a nation deeply in debt which must resort to taxing its citizens to repay the debt.
You can stop right there.
Oh, the delicious irony.
Macaroni irony.
Extra cheese, baby. Make it thick. Oh, yeah. What are you talking about? It's like history is just one big stupid cycle of circle jerk jokes.
And it says that
jokes.
Jefferson had objections.
Of course he did.
Or I think it says like, although Hamilton's plans were largely successful, they did not go without very considerable opposition, leading to the fight against the establishment of the privately owned central bank were James Madison and Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
All right, and all Jefferson's objections to the central bank rested on his concerns that such a bank might be an obstruction during the times of war. He was nonetheless quite farsighted about some effects that such an institution would have.
Yeah.
And not only did the U.S. Central Bank create major financial panics in 1893 and 1907, but the financial fraternity operating the U.S. Central Bank was exerted. And it continues to exert today.
Strong influence in U.S. affairs, especially foreign affairs, just as Jefferson had warned.
And then this is where he starts, according to Daniel, sucking some dick. There was, however, a powerful humanitarian influence at work inside the circle of founding fathers that must be acknowledged.
He got all in that dick, man.
Up the balls.
Right?
Catch the gravy.
It says one of the few important humanitarians among the founding fathers. He does some well-known figures, which is Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Patrick Henry, and Richard Henry Lee. But he goes on to say that probably the most important is George Mason.
Right. Described by Thomas Jefferson as one of our really great men and one of the first order of greatness. And he really... Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, this guy, Mason. Tastes like a real man. Yeah.
But apparently
he didn't
Mason dude was pretty cool. Like, yeah, he was anti-slave at the time when that wasn't...
He was anti-slave, but he also,
like, cool
even his homeboys who were probably somewhat against it, I guess. He was one that direct quote, it says that slave trade, he considered slave trade as a disgrace to mankind and worked to have it outlawed throughout all of the states. He did not succeed in his lifetime.
No, but like just a few years later.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think that if I remember the lore, like with these like jackasses,
less than.
I think that Washington didn't release his slaves on his death, and they went to Martha Washington.
Yeah, so Mason
or some bullshit, and she eventually like let them free.
Yeah, so he was an asshole, and most people that like fart through history understand that.
Oh, by the way, should we also go back to like Bramley like sucking dick of American forefathers when he talked about Washington?
Almost 200 pounds.
6'3" and 200 pounds.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
was an imposing figure that I loved.
That man was a very
Captain
tasty
America. No, I'm
6'3" with a 10-inch dick.
Around. Something you didn't mention about George Mason. One of the big things about him is that aside obviously that he was opposed to slavery, he pushed hard for the adoption of the Federal Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution and constitute the Bill of Rights are based upon Mason's earlier Virginia Declaration of Rights, written by him in 1776. The Bill of Rights.
Yeah, because he was the governor, I think.
I wonder why, like in history, they push forth maybe like all these other guys and not this guy, even though he seemed he had to have a more of a virtuous
he said himself, he eschewed political glory. He didn't give a fuck about being. No, he didn't care for office or anything like that. And he was fucking sick as fuck. And he pushed out the Bill of Rights. You know, he denounced the proposed Constitution because it lacked those rights, the specified individual rights. Most drafters of the Constitution, including Alexander Hamilton, declared a Bill of Rights unnecessary due to the balance and limitation of powers imposed on the federal government by the Constitution. But Mason persisted and was supported by Richard Henry Lee and Thomas Jefferson. The Bill of Rights is finally pushed through to ratification in the final hours. This, again, guys, sick as fuck or whatever, like just still like pushing out of fucking civil liberties as we know it.
Which we still use and stand by today.
Right. He was one of those just underappreciated, unrecognized forefathers of you know.
But I think that he's got a university. Like, isn't there like a George Mason somewhere over in that part of the country?
Let me check it. Yep. Over in Virginia, in Fairfax. George Mason Uni, baby.
In Virginia?
Yep.
Cool.
I mean, you can imagine asking anyone off the streets, you go, do you know who George Mason is? It's like,
are you kidding me? Most motherfuckers. Oh my God, dude.
Most people barely know.
America.
Oh, they probably go like, oh yeah, he started.
America is one of the dumbest per capita fucking populaces in the world. The rest of the world makes fun of us for how little we know about our own history.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking sad.
Yeah, I mean, like, just watch those old Jay Leno, like, talking to people on the streets, you know, segments where they just ask, like, very basic
What do you think about
like,
women's suffrage? What do you think about women's suffrage?
Like, what?
Like,
I think even that question is a little too complicated.
Suffrage isn't good, is it?
Well, my wife doesn't seem to bitch too much about.
She doesn't want to vote.
Dishes.
I do it for her. We vote together as a unit.
We are.
And by together, I mean I decide,
household.
and she agrees. So that essentially gets through. That was the last I wanted to mention for the chapter. Chapter 29, the world of fire. Fire. It sounds like a Queen album or a song or whatever, right?
It's totally like, no, dude, this is like a Norwegian black metal band's like album
doom metal
cover or band title.
Is it just a map of the United States on fire?
Black metal. The world of fire.
It says it starts off with saying like Ben Franklin was in France. Jesus Christ!
You're welcome.
Sorry, what, Ray? Yeah, focus in. Sorry. What? I'm like Pavlov's dog here. Not sure if I need to drool or hit the bell.
I know where it's at.
You're doing it wrong, Ray. We need to do that from now.
You gotta go.
Everyone on the same mic. Fucking.
That's how we clap.
It's going to make editing so much easier. Okay, so it starts off with Ben Franklin, who's in France to win French military support for the American cause.
Yep.
And
bang French chicks because
of course,
Ben Franklin.
He says he vigorously promulgated the idea of a virtuous revolution.
Vigorously
pumping the hookers in France. And also letting them know about the idea of a virtuous revolution.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So to quote the paragraph you're working from, the public at that time tended to view violent revolution as a crime against society. Franklin was successful in changing this perception by encouraging people to accept violent revolutions as steps in the progress of mankind. So that's all right, let's just go like 100 years before like Franklin's promoting this idea. You've got fucking sissies out on grassy fields, you know, fucking showing their butts at each other for conflict, to bloody ass conflict, to revolutions, now to the idea that bloody revolutions are a stepping stone of progress. And holy shit, like what a sell that must have been. Like,
one of his motivations probably is money, obviously.
Was Ben Franklin the Count of Saint Germain?
He was a goofy bastard.
He was hanging out in France, you know.
Well, he I think he loved the ladies though. Right.
I heard he was a whore.
Okay, yeah. Maybe. That's okay then. All right. Maybe he was.
But continue on. Revolutionaries were no longer to be frowned upon as criminals, he argued, because they were idealists fighting for freedom and justice. A new motto was coined: "Revolution against tyranny."
Can I say this? Is this kind of a direct influence from Calvinism, saying that battle against? Maybe it's just an influence, not necessarily
I think
I don't know, like
or like from the not Calvinists, but from the Puritans of like Cromwell, Franklin was like glorifying warfare and shit.
Franklin was not as dull as a Calvinist is. Like,
no. I'm just saying because he seems like a guy like he's gonna take influence from something, an idea.
No. But like what Ray is, I think, trying to suggest is that like the idea seeded from earlier groups manifested in the like writings and public cries for help that Franklin engaged in.
In the Puritan sense, where fighting Satan could be like a certain of like tyranny, like, you know what I mean?
Yes,
and if you don't,
like good and evil.
But
like
I always thought
the evil of tyranny.
Franklin as like a Freemason, more of in the organization and like the sense of brotherhood, more than like the religion itself.
Well, I'm not considering him like a religious person.
No. Yeah, like the reading of it to me, like I was associating with like
either of us are suggesting that.
No, absolutely, but that doesn't mean you can't.
Franklin was a very liberal motherfucker.
Yeah, it doesn't detract away.
But I'm not saying like you can't take. He couldn't have taken like some sort of
influence
idea, and just shaped it into his own.
Sure. Yeah, because I mean, no, like you're right. Like the original, the original ideas that crossed the ocean over into the United States were like, the Quakers.
No, if you want
Puritans,
progress,
like
peace, and all that kind of stuff, like peace, warfare,
and also warmongering motherfuckers. Maybe he did.
You don't think Ben Franklin had money on the mind too? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. He absolutely did. The guy had a very lavish lifestyle.
Yeah. In what way is this guy gonna keep his life intact?
His quality of life.
His quality of life. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, like, what's curious, a character we're gonna see again in the French Revolution is the Marquis de Lafayette. I'm curious why he didn't like hang around in America and then just like benefit off of whatever fringe benefits that he would have gotten off of being a revolutionary
you're talking about Franklin?
And leader.
Sorry, because you cut out a little bit, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about the Marquis de Lafayette.
Oh.
Like why he didn't hang out in the United States, but he went back to France to go help the revolution
he was
eventually.
part of the French Revolution?
About 5-10 years later.
The first French Revolution then? Or...
Well, only one that I'm really aware of.
Key rebel leader was the Duke of Orleans, Grand Master of French Masonry for his resignation at the night of the Revolution, Marquis de Lafayette. The man who had been initiated in the Masonic fraternity, by George Washington, also played an important role in the French revolutionary cause. Okay. He just seemed like a guy that I guess
the Marquis de Lafayette, like, is he like kind of like an opportunist?
It just seems more like he's a guy that follows
with the leading revolutionary forces in America.
Maybe he's a guy that follows the cause of liberty, sort of thing, as opposed to just sticking around and integrating with societies that he's like he's
there's like other.
He just sounds like a hero figure kind of thing. I guess just going around on to the next conflict. Like where doth be the oppressed? How may I serve thee? Sort of thing. How may I best help you find your freedom?
There was like a sea captain / like pirate dude that helped revolutionary causes. I'm trying to fucking remember, but like he helped out in causes. Like he fought against he was an Englishman, I believe. He helped fight against the Spanish, but he ended up being like a revolutionary leader in fucking South America. Like he helped out Bolivia, fucking Peru, I think, and Argentina Bolivia breakaway, and he had like this like real like generic name. I think he was a Scotsman, maybe.
I'm trying to search for. It's the internet's spitting out Jean Lafitte, but I don't think that's him. Oh no, not what I meant to say.
Thomas Cochrane.
Thomas Cochrane.
Yeah, Tom Cochrane. He looking at his Wikipedia. Oh, that's right. He was called the Seawolf by Napoleon.
I am familiar with that nickname, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty finding him. The Nova Scotia politician. No, that's not it.
Let's see. He was dismissed from the Royal Navy in 1814 following a controversial conviction for fraud on the stock exchange. He helped organize and lead the rebel navies of Chile and Brazil during their respective successful wars for independence in the 1820s. And then he also helped contribute to Peruvian independence. But this guy also fucking, after his exploits in the New World, helping freedom fighters there, and as well as in Europe against the Spanish, he went back to Europe and tried to help out with the fucking Grecian independence movements of can't remember what years or whatever. So figures like Tom Cochrane remind me of the Marquis de Lafayette. So like maybe you are correct there, Roland, in saying that, and I'm bringing it back to the point, like maybe he was someone who like bounced around and tried to like just help, the cause for freedom wherever he could find it.
Okay.
But it's also interesting that like Marquis de Lafayette was a Mason and found himself in such interesting positions politically after the fact.
Found this fun little. Let's see. So like one of the articles I found refers to him as the real master and commander, which is that fucking.
Yes, like basically Master and Commander
which is
was based off of his fucking life
with Russell Crowe. Yeah. Really? Oh man,
haven't seen it.
I used to have it. Fuck. I don't give a shit about him. Like what I find, what was most interesting about the movies, it's historic authenticity, with respect to seafaring and like sailing in general. Like that is by far like one of the best sailing movies that you can find out there. Like it's a fucking cool movie. There's so much it's super accurate. Guess. Anyway,
but getting back to the book, maybe. Bramley goes on to, and he goes into a little bit more detail in this in a sec, but he talks about the success of the American Revolution and subsequent revolutions. So he writes, we witnessed during this era the French Revolution, the creation of the Batavian Republic of the Netherlands, the Helvetic Republic in Switzerland, the Cilician Republic in northern Italy, and the Ligurian Republic in Genoa in Italy, and then various Spanish colonies in South America gaining independence. So after the American Revolution, apparently the fervor of revolution just spread around the world, and people started fighting against their colonial masters, which is fucking cool. But in France, though, France is fucking fascinating because of the Reign of Terror.
That was fucking nuts.
Like that was so after the revolution, France was still faced with extreme massive dets, lots of poverty,
and so they enact a zero tolerance policy, basically.
So
These motherfuckers.
Yeah, they enacted a zero tolerance policy and then also started some mass exterminations based on social status.
Fit, like, what you find for society, all right, you're dead, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, so instead of fixing the food supply,
that's pretty fucking brutal. When I read that, that instead of like again just fixing the food supply, they just decided to fix.
Let's drown everybody. Let's shoot them. Let's starve them. Let's chop off their fucking heads. Toss them in the guillotine.
Yeah, and this was like, so everyone like, or most folks sit there and equate like the guillotine with the French Revolution.
Nope.
And that is not the fucking case.
Man,
it's during the Reign of Terror when the guillotine
lasted.
was like mass
you can
employed.
still, one of the last uses of the guillotine was filmed. Like, you can still see it. It's in black and white. Yeah, you can still see it. It's in black and white.
Oh, no shit.
I saw it on YouTube long time ago. It's probably still there. It's fucked up, dude. Like, you see it from the back. You don't see the front end, but like they just put the guy in there, drop the blade and flip the body into a little basket around the side, and that's it. It is fucking nuts. Like, these guys did not mess around. I mean, holy shit. Yeah. But yeah, so like it's been estimated over 100,000 people died in this period. Let's see, and he just goes on to talk about like the sort of the dissection of genocide sort of thing.
Once again, William the Ninth. Well, it's William the Ninth now, but he is, of course, hitting the old German tradition of mercenaries.
He as an inheritor of the Hesse-Kessel fortune. Yeah.
And he fucks up.
Surprise. Yes. This is one of the few examples that Bramley notes here where the Machiavellism fucking backfires and like, it's time to pay the piper or whatever the hell sort of thing. Like they get fucked. What is it that happens exactly? Like his lands are annexed by Napoleon or some such?
Yeah, they get annexed into, I can't remember what the fucking territory was called, but it's part of the French Republic or whatever. Yeah, so Napoleon annexed it into the Kingdom of Westphalia. And so apparently it wasn't until Napoleon's defeat at the Battle of Leipzig in 1813 that William IX was able to regain Hesse-Kassel.
Until 1866, in which case it was taken over by Prussia. They're still around.
But most importantly, bringing up William IX again, we get the appearance of Mayor Amschel Rothschild.
One of the founders of the most influential banking houses of Europe, and still one of the most influential.
And he was William IX's financial agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he like kind of got
busted
there
his ass.
Like, because he fucking, I just find it fascinating because like he was like, oh, the way to get into his favor was like, I got a bunch of old coins, I'll sell them to you at a discounted rate, and then William IX's like, this guy's pretty cool, like I'll make you some sort of like, I'll give you a title, but it actually has no rights and authorities and duties to it.
But the thing is, he gets his foot in the door.
Mayor Amschel was able to
20 years
springboard off of that to become like the personal advisor.
You got to respect the hustle of this Rothschild person. He went all out.
Dude, he was like, I'll be your bottom dollar bitch.
So it says here 20 years later.
And then when another spot opened up
in 1789, the French Revolution began. 4 years after William IX inherited the wealth of Hesse-Kassel. Mayer was given his first financial assignment on behalf of Prince William. This in turn led to the coveted position as a personal financial agent to the prince. He made a fortune from these activities.
And so on this next page, on 300, I have a hard time understanding this arrangement, but you've got Mayor Amschel Rothschild talking to this Buderus guy, and somehow they work out a deal, but even after the multiple rereads, it wasn't clear to me how Rothschild was able to get in on the Merc game and benefit as well.
It just says here that like the French Revolution and the wars of trade created shortages throughout Hesse, and Rothschild capitalized this by raising the prices of the cloth he was importing from England. It's very specific and very weird.
Well, sure, but then it gets into Rothschild also struck a deal with another of William IX's chief financial agents, Charles Buderus. The deal enabled Rothschild to share in the profits from the leasing of Hessian mercenaries to England. But then it gets into that block quote from this book by Cowles. Like, it talks about how Rothschild was, busting up the prices on like cloth sent to England, and Buderus was making a boatload of cash off of sending Hessian soldiers to England, but somehow they got together to make more money, and I'm not sure how that transpired. Like, please take a moment to examine that, like chat, like that block quote. It's just not clear to me, like what arrangement they made or how they made more money out of the deal or shared profits.
Yeah, because if they're kind of canceling themselves out, like, aren't they just like breaking even or something? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's like I'm making this.
So essentially, they stopped paying each other.
I'm making the same amount of money selling cloth.
I think is what it seems to say here. Why not let the two-wave movement cancel itself out and pocket the commissions both ways on the bills of exchange? So they just...
You think the Rothschild pretty much benefited from that more so? Maybe he was pocketing more money than the other guy?
I mean, that depends on, I guess the exchange rates of cloth versus Hessian mercs at that point. But we're not given that information, so.
And they mentioned, like, out of the beginnings of that was the house of Rothschild, named after the red shield, Roth, red, shield.
Right, yeah.
Used as its emblem. Right.
And also brings up the shifts.
For generations, the Rothschild house was Europe's most powerful banking family, and it remains influential in the international banking community to this day.
Bitches.
It says control of the Rothschild house, as well as many other banking houses, passed from father to son over the generations. The Rothschilds, the Schiffs, and other banking families were truly part of the hereditary paper aristocracy, to which the Brotherhood revolutionaries had given great deal of power when they established the inflatable paper money system and its attendant central banks.
What I love about this is like the last like paragraph or two, because the Rothschilds were originally or they're a Jewish family
into the Freemasons.
So when it came to invoking them, or like
they changed the fucking rules for
Freemasons. Yeah, they just changed the rules. They're like, oh, there's this
what
Jew sect.
You got, because they got money, baby.
Yeah, that's, and then once again, we have a moment where Bramley talks about how he talked about the importance of Melchizedek in an earlier chapter, where in the chapter of Melchizedek's apron, you don't get the fucking sense that guy is actually really all that
no, you don't.
important.
Again, like, this guy is horrible with foreshadowing. You just have to assume, he mentioned it. It's probably going to be something.
No, we had to mention that Melchizedek is considered like a Christ figure. Like in the,
Old Testament, baby.
No.
But I don't remember that.
None of that comes out in the actual chapter.
I think it was.
I had to look it up to see who this guy actually was.
Yeah, the priest king.
To kind of give context to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, once again, like, Bramley's like, hey, remember how I talked about all this stuff? And you go, oh, that was like 30 chapters ago. Yeah, sure, homie. And
so, like, I was
just like the blue degrees of the assassins.
Like, I was joking with Ray before we started about how the way Bramley gives us all this history, and then right here at the end of this, Oh yeah, UFOs. Here we go.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget. Like
This was an
aliens.
extremely
That's what we're
interesting
talking about
development.
here.
He's talking about the order of Melchizedek. For across the Atlantic Ocean, the name of Melchizedek was about to be resurrected on the American continent during what some people believe to have been a series of significant UFOs.
And it fucking wasn't. That was
episodes.
Moroni, dude. Like,
And here we go. Here we go into the launch of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The Mormons.
Better known as the Mormons. UFOs, Mormons. Okay,
and
ready,
so now we're just
go.
gonna play the South
Dum,
Park
dum, dum,
episode.
dum,
Chapter
dum, dum,
30.
Yeah, Joseph Smith was a prophet. They say, dum 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 dum.
Chapter 30. Master Smith and the Angel. Basically, this chapter is going to go over Joseph Smith and his the beginnings of Mormonism, or the Church of Latter-day Saints.
AKA touched by an alien.
Touched by an alien, yeah. Only the best pajamas to block a knife. If you don't want to listen to us talk about Mormonism, you can go watch a South Park episode that basically goes over this whole thing.
The one true religion.
Without, again, if you want to stay here and listen to us, you're going to hear about some UFOs that encourage this, right? Not some angel, not some like real angel and shit.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to plug a whole other show that has no need for support, but last podcast on the left's coverage on
It really
Mormonism is just fucking chef's kiss good. I recommend you guys checking that out at some point. If you're just interested in the phenomenon of Mormonism, why is it so prevalent? You know, what's it all about? Like, those dudes really had some nice research assistance.
Someday we should be so lucky.
They needed, you know,
To pay somebody to look it up. Let's toddle on to the true religion, boys.
Okay, so in this case, I just want to start off with what Bramley says in the opening chapter here. It says, "We have seen many instances in which religious agitation and revivalism were associated with the UFO phenomenon. The Hebrew rebellions in Egypt under Moses, and the Christian agitations under Jesus, and the Islamic militancy under Muhammad, and the religious activism during the UFO-plagued years of the Black Death." And it says there's an incident known as the Welsh Revival in 1904 to 1905, in which a preacher driven by inner voices electrified the countryside with his sermons. And people were reporting all manner of unusual phenomena during the revival years.
Jesus.
Woo!
in the name of Jesus.
And it gives an account here. Apparently, it says that people saw a block of fire
Right.
rising around the mountainside.
How long did it last?
It was about 200, 300 yards away. Then a star, as it were, shot out to meet it, and they clapped together and formed a ball of fire. Now, couldn't this be like a sun, just like kind of coming over the horizon, or maybe lowering down the horizon or something?
You're talking about like Tatooine with the fucking planet of two suns or whatever?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
are these people like well hydrated who are claiming these things?
Ray, I don't think they believed in water then. I think they believed in the balance of the four humors.
This is just more UFO accounts. So we have the lights were seen
The
at
Hummers.
least once near a chapel. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And let me see. They were leaving the area where a preacher lived, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this chapter is kind of confusing because, well, it's supposed to be talking about like Joseph Smith and Mormonism, but he spends the first 4 to 5 pages talking about
Where they saw like alleged
weird religious
UFOs and stuff.
folk
Yeah.
revival situations where UFOs were supposed to be reported, but when it comes to Joseph Smith, he doesn't really lay it on as thick.
Joseph
so I'm just
Smith
curious,
is,
why the fuck he even brings this shit up to begin with? Because the stuff that Smith purports and people purport that Smith has done,
Yeah.
that shit's wild enough for this book. You know,
Well,
it just seemed like it was like this
you bring
weird
that up,
empty
Daniel,
waste
and
of
like I said, like,
space for.
Basically, most of the beginning of this chapter is talking about like UFO accounts, but it says that interesting that.
Well, but does he not start this chapter off by saying like, oh well, like we've
he's
seen in the
reiterating
past
old
how
shit.
there's been associations of like aerial phenomenon and
But
religious
at the end of all these
whatever.
accounts, like he does talk about the fact that the UFO phenomenon were debunked in 1905 in an identical way that the modern UFOs are debunked today, revealing that debunking is by no means a late 20th century phenomenon. And he says, basically, they attributed a lot of these sightings that people had to farm lanterns, marsh gas, the planet Venus, fantasies of an overweight brain, which is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a fucky thing to say, but
It
okay.
says explanations such as this were no more helpful in 1905 than they are today in shedding light on some genuinely remarkable phenomenon. Now, like balls of light in the sky, I mean, how many times can someone who's either not educated or not familiar with natural phenomenon in the sky, they're going to attribute that to some kind of yeah, basically, yeah.
Swamp gas.
that's
bitch.
weird.
And it says the events in New York included a vision leading to the founding of the Mormon Church by a teenage Ute named Joseph Smith.
Nice.
Okay, and that's yeah. And it
Help
says
us, Joseph Smith. You're our only hope.
14 or
A
15
Ute?
years of age, and his mind was in a state of confusion.
Yeah.
Now, yeah.
He was having a religious
Yeah, because apparently like
conflict
various
of
churches in the area were having like bitter debates over like who was the best, I guess. Like it's not really clear, and that's just
Nope,
me
that's-
just
We
what he
can
said.
say, Daniel, that
inserting myself into the stupid situation. But allegedly,
Out
Joseph
loud.
went up on a
Out loud.
hillside by
at 14 or
himself to
15
pray
years old, he
over
went
it.
out by the hillside to
Yeah.
jerk off.
Yep. Lonely Hill. There you go.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. Like 14, 15 years old in the early 1800s, dude, you're like fucking like 45 years old. You're probably not jerking off, man. You're worried about your fucking mortgage and
Season.
if the farm's gonna make the next season. Like
Now, according to Joseph Smith,
see, that's why child brides are
Joseph
okay in the
Mormon.
Mormon church because like Joseph Mormon or Joseph Smith was fucking, doing all of his bullshit, at 14, 15 years
Yeah.
old. So they're like, well, he was like ancient in those days. He only had like
he was
4 more
already a
years of
well-established
life.
man
Well-to-do.
at 14 or 15.
A gentleman. Yeah, he already owned 3 businesses and
Yeah.
These are his accounts. Joseph Smith, chapter 2, verse 15.
Yeah. Okay. So the book that they fucking cite a lot of these like Joseph Smith accounts, it's called the Pearl of
Great Price.
something. The Pearl of Great Price. Yeah. And so it's like, so I looked into this earlier.
Of course.
And basically, it's
As many
an
of them have,
expanded Book of Mormon, where the like I saw like an image of a leather bound copy where it was like the Book of Mormon and this text or whatever. So like, I'm not sure how it fleshes out the Book of Mormon or whatever, but
And these are allegedly the actual quoted
God damn
words
it.
of Joseph Smith.
fucking Mormons, man.
Now let's if you want to, we can read some of these, and we probably
Yes.
take turns reading some of them because they're
Um,
funny. So it says, immediately I seized upon some power which entirely overcame me, and had such an astonishing influence over me as to bind my tongue so that I could not speak. Thick darkness gathered around me, and it seemed to me for a time as if I were doomed to sudden destruction.
that was Joseph Smith, verse
And it says that just
chapter
as Joseph
2,
was
verse
about
15.
to give into despair, Saul.
A pillar of light exactly over my head, above the brightness of the sun, which gradually or descended gradually until it fell upon me. It no sooner appeared than I found myself delivered from the enemy which held me bound. When the light rested upon me, I saw two personages whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. One of them spake unto me, calling me by my name, and it said, pointing to the other, "This is my beloved son. Hear him." This is fucking retarded.
It does sound like somebody writing some like preteen chick or whatever the hell writing a romance novel.
Like writing a fan fiction about her secret lover that was her uncle. I discovered a light appearing in my room, which continued to increase until the room was lighter than at noonday. When immediately a personage appeared by my bedside.
Because he was standing on his third leg.
Boom! His feet did not touch the floor. He had on a loose robe of most exquisite whiteness beyond anything earthly I've ever seen. Nor do I believe that any earthly being could be made to appear so exquisitely white and brilliant.
This was the appearances of an angel who reported and dictates the pronouncements. These are the foundation.
His hands
of the
were
church
naked.
Okay, so
his chest exposed
and touched my thighs.
You have to make note that the figure in Joseph's room had naked hands, wrists, feet, and ankles,
and his neck too. Wow,
these are all exposed.
Right, I can see his. I can see his Adam's apple.
Wide, nipples hard.
Lord save me.
Now the figure introduced itself as Moroni, the macaroni.
Moroni, yeah. I was like, what is this?
It's a man who lived centuries earlier.
Mm-hmm. He, the angel, commenced and again related the very same things which he had done on his first visits without the least variation, which having done, I came. It's like, this is such a fucking fanfic for some fucking weird anime angels come fuck me thing. Like, this is a weird fucking bullshit. But so if you guys have not seen the South Park episode covering Mormonism, Moroni talks to Joseph Smith and
several times
basically tells him a bunch of bullshit.
That's right. With slight variation.
Several times without variation, which is
remember, like,
funny. Because there was no variation, because Bramley suggests that Joseph Smith, when he talks about how he heard the same messages,
he does say that there is there's a change in one of them that tells him
that was the suggestion of a recorded message.
I was joking with Ray about this. Oh yeah, let me play the same recording over and over, and then at the end. And then go tell your papa about this. Otherwise, it would be kind of weird. Just saying. Don't want to be that guy. Go talk to daddy. So, yeah. No, you're right. Like, it's...
one of the things
it's played almost like it's a recording.
Yeah, Bramley literally says that. It says, Joseph appears to have been looking at a recorded image projected through the window into his room. How he's assuming that, like, fucking hard. He had just seen Star Wars and saw R2-D2 projecting the image.
Well, dude, it goes right back to his interpretation of what John saw in the book of
this little kid got
he makes all these fantastic claims or actually not fantastic claims. Like he ground truths a bunch of claims and then goes, "Oh, but the 7 candles and 7 lamps, those are something different. That was for ritual." And I was like, "Well, where's the modern day analog for that, asshole?"
Speaking of
called massaging the data,
the narrative of Joseph Smith. We have young Smith's narrative resembles early custodial encounters in many respects. A bright light descends from the sky, followed by the appearance of angels. and Joseph's testimony that he felt seized and unable to move is identical to the several modern UFO close encounters in which eyewitnesses report being immobilized, especially before an abduction. What's that?
But you know what wasn't involved?
Yeah. Now,
alleged fucking psychotropic drugs.
Did you?
It was just, nope, Joseph's got this vision. He had this angel visit him, told him a bunch of bullshit, and he rolled with it, man.
Bramley makes about going to Disneyland?
No, I didn't.
If Smith's account is accurate and UFO related, there would be tremendous humor in it.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Asshole. Today we can go to Disneyland and marvel at remarkable, lifelike projected images of talking heads in the haunted house ride. A similar projection viewed by a young country bumpkin. Dick. In the 19th century would no doubt be considered nothing less than a true vision from God.
Does anyone, just reading this verbatim is like entertaining enough, but I mean, if you want to go down, Roland,
just
this last paragraph here.
I'll jump right on that. I'll jump right on that.
Oh, how
but I did want to preface that with the immediately following sentence where I left off. Certainly, young Smith's narrative resembles earlier custodial encounters in many respects. A bright light. Okay, excuse me. I'm stupid. Just wanted to double check. Okay, so more injecting his own silliness. Other Mormon writings?
Yeah.
Also tend to support the likelihood that Joseph Smith had a UFO encounter. The Mormon doctrines revealed by Smith state that there are many inhabited planets in the universe. This was quite a daring idea for an uneducated man of the 19th century. Smith added that God inhabits a human flesh and bones body.
And what I love here is how
he finally drops in a citation. And that God lives near a star called Kolob.
Well, no. But dude, on the previous page, he had like he almost had 2 citations
never does that.
Where there were block quotes, but he would not take the time to do a little minor block quote for these 2 apparent.
Right. Yeah. He's just gonna softball this
very important claims.
In other words.
Making.
Yeah. In other words, God is a human-like extraterrestrial
Trust me,
living
though.
on another planet. What we seem to clearly have in Joseph Smith's experience is another appearance of our custodial friends pretending that they are God and meddling in human affairs by implanting yet another apocalyptic religion on Earth.
And of course, according to the South Park episode, the Book of Mormon was translated from a bunch of metal plates.
Yes.
That only he could translate, right? And that's totally legit.
And that's supposed to be legit. Like,
and Bramley brings up the characteristics of Mormonism and like how, let me just read this here. It says, angels encourage human servants to practice important virtues, and the foremost being, of course, obedience. And obedience is basically one of the main things that cause the control, like
right. I mean, like we were talking about our previous chapters. That's the tenet of the
going back to the strict
tenet of the Masons,
going back to just worshing the gods themselves.
Do as you were told.
It's fun that Jesus Christ apparently makes an appearance just after he's crucified. Let me just swing over to the Americas and let them know what's up.
Yeah, right. Hey, how's it going, guys? How you doing? Just checking your crib out, whatever. I'm Jesus.
Yeah.
It's me, Jesus, guys.
So it's claimed by the Book of Mormon or by Mormonism that around 600 BC, Palestinians were transplanted by way of underground submarine or underground craft or underwater craft to the Americas and dumped here. Mm-hmm. And those are the fuckers that set up the Olmec civilization.
Maya, the Toltecs, the Aztecs. Oh, yeah. It's all them, baby. Of course, it all makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I just have to laugh though, because I really I would love to reach out to William Bramley.
What the fuck are you talking about?
With a sincere question of okay, now that we know about what we know about Mesoamerica and their prehistory, what do you think about the claims?
Have either of you guys checked out
now?
interviews with Bradley? I thought you had before, Ray.
Not entirely.
Because
like nothing recent, like within the past 10 years, 20 years.
I have, but mostly he's just on podcasts, and they don't actually. The interviewers kind of like lightly grill him. There's nothing really like in depth or serious about it.
Waste of
and generally, you hear the same kind of rigmarole you hear towards the beginning of the book, like. Well, I was interested in warfare.
So he's not interested in actual,
I used to play.
Like you have to think about the fact that they're the questions they're interviewing him with, which is one thing I would like to do. We could attempt to email William Bramley with like legit questions to kind of prep him for what we're gonna ask him.
No, yeah, sure.
And then see if he maybe come on the.
I'd like to see. I'd certainly like to see what he thinks nowadays, for sure. But with respect to the changing context of information that he references in this book.
Now, there's a whole section here that, according to Bramley, accurately describes a nuclear holocaust in the Americas. I'm not going to go over that necessarily.
We're just going to, we don't have time for that comic book bullshit. That's just...
Yes, rumblings, flashings, and like crazy shit going on. Read the book of Revelation. It's kind of the same thing.
Was it Terry?
Yeah.
Dude, that was my fucking comment in my fucking
thunder, lightning,
book here.
Very, very
you guys can see my little scribbles here. But on the quote where it is highly unlikely that any person in Smith's day could have accidentally imagined events so closely mirroring a nuclear holocaust. And so I wrote, what about the shit in Revelations?
No, that's just right.
I don't know, Roland or Daniel, if you all want to read page 314, the basic spiritual beliefs of the Mormon Church.
Yeah, I got it.
Summarized here if you want to go through that.
Just as you said, humans are immortal spiritual beings occupying human bodies. The spirit is the true source of intelligence and personality, not the body. As spiritual beings, we existed before birth and will continue to exist after death. The true goal of life is to improve spiritually, and everyone can eventually achieve a rehabilitated spiritual state that mirrors the state of a supreme being. Ethics are an important step to achieving such a state. Everyone is endowed with free will. He goes on to say how these are essentially maverick teachings.
But with a twist, though.
Right.
So basically, one of the beliefs of Mormonism is that the spirit and the human form will reunite at some point on another planet. So basically, you need to value even like your human.
It's supposed to be a belief in the eventual Basically, it's not that the spiritual realm merges with the material realm. It's like the material realm becomes the only realm of existence.
Yeah, but that also becomes like tangible. And physical.
Right. Yes. The spirit is made up of tangible spiritual spirit molecules.
Yes, but like the physical universe is everything. Spiritual bodies aren't shit. So it's like that furthered argument from Bramley where it's like.
Right.
We're trying to capture spiritual beings
and it is a quantifiable, measurable
and make them convinced that that's all the world
of
is.
Existence, the spirit itself.
Which gets further subverted in the chapters we're going to talk about next time. But
Bramley does end this
development of
chapter sort of like talking about how Mormonism promotes the ideas of like materialism through their beliefs, the elimination or the just doing away with the idea of the spiritual dimension and the
Yeah, so Mormon writings declare that God, i.e. Earth's custodial management, intends to eventually eliminate the spirit world entirely as part of God's great utopian plan for mankind. In other words, nothing but the material universe is ever to exist as far as the people of Earth are concerned. And then Bramley continues on like, once again, that's
which
like
goes back to the custodians' original plans for humanity in creating humanity. They wanted sort of like an eternal slave race.
Well, it mentions that like our memory of our spiritual being prior to us getting into our human body has been dimmed.
Yes, which is also a custodial.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we have a
right. Which folds into the ideas of reincarnation.
Or something, as he calls it.
The life and the information that you carried from the previous. Right.
Yeah,
yes, but I mean in that, like,
so like
the information that you carried on from that you may have had in a previous existence or whatever. It is all the same existence, but like due to the limitations imposed by the custodians, you were unaware of that. And that was something that was intentional on their part because they were afraid of people becoming, like as intelligent as they are. And I think he makes a mention of like distinctions of like the Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and how they had like universal knowledge and how that was stripped away and they were just, left out in their current state. That is to say, our current understanding of our consciousness or whatever. Yeah. We don't carry on information like past our particular lives or whatever. So he does mention some stuff in here about what does he mention in here? Just some other things about the Mormon Church that I don't really think are relevant or interesting. What does he talk about
Well,
here?
he does associate the fact that like eventually Freemasonry came into kind of melted together with Mormonism.
Right, yes.
Because he was made a master, Joseph Smith was made a master Mason on March 6, 1842. And that the most famous Mormon Freemason was Brigham Young, the man who led the Mormon exodus across America to Utah, where they settled and all that shit.
Right. Yeah.
And Brigham Young was a piece of shit, too.
Dude, he was like once again citing the like last podcast on Left Dudes. But apparently like Brigham Young was like all about like child brides and found various ways to rationalize that.
Yeah, I know they had a problem with that quite
within
a bit.
the
There's
church.
Still some sects within Mormonism that yeah.
But like really, dudes, like if y'all want to like just dive into Mormonism and how like fucking crazy it is, like check out those guys' podcasts, and maybe someday we'll be fortunate enough where they reference us.
Ray can only get so hard. Stop it.
Even though they came into our territory.
Dan was referring to the fact that they talked about a instance that happened in our Rio Grande Valley.
Oh,
and they were referencing our towns, our streets, our women,
our turf,
our tacos.
Get out of here.
It was.
And what was the episode on that again, Ray? Like,
I
haven't checked it out myself, but like, what was the topic?
I don't remember if that was specifically, but it had to do with that incident. Yeah.
Oh, word, dude.
Yeah.
Where Matamoros became Matagringos. Yeah.
Let's see.
I think that's pretty much it, dude. Like
he also goes into the fact that the racism in Mormonism, where
oh God.
Yes.
What is this?
It wasn't until the 80s when they started letting like black people into the church. Like
320 in the bottom.
Yeah. Like no, but they have there's a quote.
There
here.
really is some.
Oh yeah, that's on I think 321. Yeah. Let me.
Dude, it's just that one block quote in italics on.
Mormon doctrines, which had placed dark-skinned people in greatly inferior position to whites.
Jesus Christ.
Arianism was an important element of early Mormon philosophy, and it says, part of the book, it says, we read that the dark skin was created by God as punishment for sin.
Yep.
You want to read that block there?
Wherefore?
Yeah.
Wherefore, as those being punished, were white and exceeding fair and delightsome, that they might not be enticing unto my people, the Lord God, did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them. And thus saith the Lord God, I will cause that they shall be loathsome unto my people, save they shall repent of their iniquities. And cursed shall be the seed, sperm, of him that mixeth with their seed. For they shall be cursed even with the same cursing. And the Lord spake it, and it was done. And because of the cursing which was upon them, they did become an idle people, full of mischief and subtlety, and did seek in the wilderness for beasts of prey. So what were they like? Man.
Is he saying like they were like fucking animals?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, they're going around butt fucking goats in the forest or some shit. Jesus Christ, like for prey.
I wonder if there were like any sort of if they in like certain Mormon churches, whenever like the AIDS epidemic broke out, like they were like saying that black people were like fucking monkeys.
Those goddamn minorities. Yeah,
it's them cursed of God's children.
Those cursed dark skinners
who are
so full of sin.
They layeth down with the monkeys.
Yes. Obviously, they've dropped that shit.
Allegedly.
Well,
allegedly they dropped
excuse me. Recently, allegedly, supposedly. Never been to Utah. I hear it's nice.
I like what Bramley mentions here. It says, no individual or organization is purely good and purely bad. In our crazy universe, absolute good and absolute evil just do not appear to exist. In the worst people, one will always find a tiny ember of good, i.e. psychopath Adolf Hitler was kind to children.
Right, yeah. He was talking about fucking Hitler. Yeah. Hitler was nice to kids. He wasn't all bad. Get the fuck out of here, man.
I'll tell you this though, Roll.
I want to visit Utah someday, but not for the people.
Is fucking fantastic.
Fuck the people. Give me the rocks, baby.
It is, dude. Like what sucks is like the Arches National Park is like a tourist like haven, but those things are fucking beautiful to see. And there's so much
I love Utah
art around
the place.
Like it's
the people,
insane, dude.
I couldn't give a.
Not saying that Utah isn't a beautiful place in general.
Couldn't give enough. I couldn't give less of a fuck.
What's really cool is in some of the pictographs I saw in some of the stops in Utah, they fucking had like figures atop of like beasts of burden, very akin to like Sumerian kind of like depictions of the gods and shit, you know, like this dude standing on top of a deer or something rather than a fucking bull or whatever, but like the same like kind of ideas represented. You see the same kind of orbs in the sky and shit.
Yeah, Utah's
like, it's
a beautiful
fucking
place.
Phenomenal, dude.
It's on my.
And the red sandstone, man, brings a tear to the eye, man. It's so pretty out there.
I just wanted to bring this chapter to a close by kind of like summarizing a bit as to why Mormonism is considered a custodial led religion, or like a custodial influenced religion. Yeah. Mormonism is saying that we are spiritual beings that are eventually going to like merge, if you will, with or the spirit is going to become matter or something like that.
Right.
So basically it's just saying that
the spirit world and the material world will become one.
Yeah. So you're not going to achieve a spiritual salvation, so to speak, or awakening according to like what I guess the Maverick religions would say you are going to achieve. It's pretty much, what's the word I'm looking for, man? Like as far as it's not demeaning or
derivative.
It's it's a bummer that basically they're saying
is it a bummer?
You have no recollection of your spiritual life prior, and you're basically gonna just live on a planet somewhere else. You're not gonna like achieve a spiritual utopia necessarily, but you're just gonna like transfer your spiritual self to another planet where you live with the supreme being in some kind of actual material world still.
Oh yes,
and it's just gonna last forever, I guess, you know. And I assume like if you're a Mormon and you die, you're gonna get like don't you get like virgins also? I don't know. That's just Islam.
I don't know. I think you get like a planet where you can pull all the stupid.
Yeah, just somewhere off near
chicks. Yeah,
you have like many lives
your
near
wife,
Jupiter.
up with
There's
Yeah.
the
Many
porn
wives, I'm
planet
sorry, near Jupiter.
XXX, and you go out there and,
All right, so
you get a handy J.
anything else? Anything else anyone want to add for
old-fashioned.
this chapter before we close this?
No, I'm happy we got through this shit. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see you again in our next or last 10 chapters, or 11 in this case, chapters 31 through 41. We'll be bringing this book, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley, to a close. And it's been a long time coming, so hopefully we can get through that as well. 130 pages to go. So
130 pages to go.
That'll be it. We'll
boys.
see you next time. My name is Ray.
This is Roland.
And Daniel. Heyo.
From our respective studios that we built with our own hands,
Yes, these hands.
filled with all the most expensive equipment.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, because we're so well off and rich.
Oh, yes. All the money.
All right. See you next time.
See ya.
See you, dudes.
Blue midgets come into my house. Hey, it's ridiculous. I had some kind of a rectal probe. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.